Good evening. It is 6 o'clock, and I would like to call to order the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation's November 15th meeting. We do have a quorum. We are just missing Ms. Langley. Richard, do we have any public comments?
We did not have any comments either through email, submitted ahead of time, or signed up for this evening.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Item number 1, consideration and possible action on the approval of the October 18th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. I believe that those might be off by a bit because it says October 18th minutes, but since this is November and those minutes do not include the discussion of downtown, they might be entitled incorrectly. Is that the case?
I don't have them in front of me right now.
Because this says absent Ryan, Jeff, and Dan, and I know y'all were here at the last meeting.
This was for the October meeting, and I told Richard that I didn't have the November 1 meeting done.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so that's a special meeting. Okay, never mind.
So the special meeting will be in the next agenda packet.
And I was absent that meeting, so I was having a great day. I think they coached that day.
Okay. Any comments on the October 18th regular meeting minutes? Did everyone read them thoroughly? Brian, as always, provides excellent detail.
I move we expect whatever that is. I make a motion, we accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the October 18th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any other discussion on this item? Those in favor of approving the October 18th, 2021 regular meeting minutes say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The item carries unanimously, and we will approve the October 18th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Item number 2, financial report through October 31st, 2021. Richard?
Okay, a couple of quick items on there. The interest rate on our textbook account is up to a whopping 0.03%. It's at least finally moving in the right direction, but it's of course not significant in terms of the amount of money it generates, but it's better than losing money. The sales tax transfer item was left blank because our senior accountant, Anthony Lasky, went on vacation before we received those numbers. I can tell you the amount that will be transferred will be $135,240, plus or minus whatever the cents are in rounding.
Okay.
And that is above projections for our income for the period. This month does include transfer made for Kroger for 380 agreements. What got paid for this was that we had an audit that we performed with Kroger's personnel on the 2017-2018 payments. Those were not quite calculated properly. We owed money, we paid that, and also made the 2019 regular payment. Kroger has the obligation to reach out to us to start that process and never did, so we reached out to them. I think it was one of those things that was lost in the pandemic. It was actually with everyone, or they just forgot.
What was the difference between what we had paid them and what we owed them? Sorry, is that included in was that separated out?
I don't have the information with me. I can get that here.
Like approximately a couple percent difference, or was it also, because that's a big difference too, because I know the amount in the beginning was quite a bit smaller than what we're currently.
I can tell you it was relatively small in 2017. It was a little bit larger in 2018. The bulk of that money that you see is the 2019 regular payment.
Right.
As the first and developing years of that agreement, they were generating less business when it first started compared to what they're doing now.
Right.
And that includes the Kroger, and everything on that property, whether it's in that center, including the gas station up there. And so approximately Kroger through the development and that agreement gets back, I believe, about 45% of the sales taxes that are paid.
45?
45.
Yeah.
The city keeps 55%. Now, with that, I'm lumping in the MEDC's amount. So Kroger gets back about 45% of the sales taxes that are paid on that property. There's also, separately from the city, they get back property taxes. for a 15-year term. There is a maximum ceiling of dollar amount that we return to Kroger, but I don't think the maximum of that agreement is likely to be triggered throughout the course of it. So we are, 2021 will be year 5 of that agreement.
Okay.
And as I said before, it's a 15-year agreement.
I really don't think the gas station is included.
I'm sorry?
I really don't think the gas station is included.
Well, not taxes related to gasoline, but they do incidental sales there of soda, soda,
That's
snacks.
that out of the map. So the map they ended up
Okay.
submitting as the final includes the gas station.
That was my understanding. I can go back and verify that. But when Dave was explaining that, or originally explaining all that to me, that's my understanding is because their sales tax generated from those incidental items, I think their sales all run through Kroger. So I don't know if that can get separated out.
Richard,
That may end up being how it was included.
Okay.
Richard, so it's 100% of their property tax, 45% rebate on sales tax, correct? Or 65?
Yes, on the property tax, no, that's not EDC, that's just city.
No.
And
Yeah.
on the sales tax, yeah, it's approximately 45% they get back. However, it's not stated that way in the contract. It's, they get MEDC portion, they get...
Understood. But overall, it amounts to about that?
Yes.
I was just curious, okay. Is that the only company that we're working with right now through that? No?
No.
There's others?
Yeah, the shops in Montgomery take
Okay.
Kroger across the way.
Yep.
Chick-fil-A, then go west to Goodways.
Gotcha.
Two, but not including McCoy's. That property also, less term, or different terms, less of a running term, like it's a 10-year agreement. But, and those types of agreements are not unusual in the sense of you're trying to entice development to come here. Yeah, the cost of that may be some incentive to return that money.
Right.
It's up to MEDC and the city as an entity to negotiate an agreement that, is beneficial to this area.
Gotcha. Okay. I was just curious as to how many there were out there. So.
Yeah. And the city itself does have, does have other agreements in place that are property tax on.
Right.
And so those are examples of a number of tools that are out there to work with encouraging development.
Good. Good to know.
So if there's any other questions that were on the expenses there, I would try to take those. Otherwise, y'all can accept the report.
I'll make a motion, we accept the financial report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the financial report through October 31st, 2021. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any other discussion on this item? All those in favor of accepting the financial report through October 31st, 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will accept the financial report through October 31st, 2021. Item number 3, consideration of possible action to cancel the regular meeting of December 20th, 2021.
All right, due to the closeness of the Christmas holiday, the December regular meetings will be canceled. It does fall within the same week as Christmas this year, which it normally does. So that's up to the discretion of the board of directors, but I think there has been a problem in the past fielding even just a quorum to hold meetings at that time.
Yeah.
So any business for that meeting would be held over January. If there's anything urgent that comes up, we could always talk about a special meeting.
I move that we cancel the regular meeting of December 20th, 2021.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we cancel the regular meeting of December 20th, 2021. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any other discussion on this item? All those in favor of canceling the regular meeting of December 20th, 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will cancel the regular meeting of December 20th, 2021. Item number 4, update and possible action on entrepreneurship partnership between Montgomery Economic Development Corporation and Montgomery ISD.
Handed out just a bit earlier. Mr. Sanford, you'd like to go ahead and have the floor.
Okay, in the packet that you have, this front page that I'll be referring to is just my summation of an article that was written that Becky referred me to, and I read it. And the information I got from the article was so closely aligned with what the school district is either mandated or directed or encouraged to move toward in fulfillment with state mandates that say schools need to get busy at getting school-to-work initiatives in place. What we need to understand is these are long-term goals, no doubt, but schools are being held accountable for taking the steps now, and will be rewarded for doing that. And of course, we know our school is seriously wanting to put the vocational trades building in place. So I ran off a couple of framework matrices there that reinforce what many of us at the initial meeting, we had an initial meeting with business people, entrepreneurs, parents, city officials. Jeff and I were at that meeting, that's a little over a month ago initially, to get things going. And it was very clear that the feelings of the group was that this was a good idea. This was a necessary idea to get a shifting going on in schools at getting our kids and young people ready to go into the marketplace, in large part to diminish the debt problem nationally and personally that comes in, that we've all been a part of one way or another. And so you can peruse some of those data entries there and just know that this is what every school is being given as best practices. So empirical data, data-driven decision-making, and everything is behind this. There's a back page here, short paragraph, and I just ran that all so that you can kind of see where I got all the information with the CTE, shifting the skills, the whole mindset of shifting the skills of not only parents, but also students who really don't have a clue. How do I get there? And that's our task as adults, to help them get there. And so the whole idea of the city is for us as city officials to be able to make ties to businesses. And Jeff and I were talking just earlier today that it's, for example, I have a meeting Thursday with 2 civic organization leaders. I'll give them the vision of what we're trying to accomplish. It's about making partnerships. It's about creating a business partnership of some kind that puts some of our people who have been there and done that in terms of starting a business, growing a business, entrepreneurial skills in general, in addition to skills, trades, practices. And so if I could just characterize it as a whole, it's doing what we know to be right, which is to cultivate our own workforce. And it is very telling how you go to the new steakhouse owner and just about in tears about having a vision for doing something and no workforce to do it. And we could argue whether it's $15 an hour or not, but it is what it is. It's hard to find. We used to say it's hard to find good help. It's hard to find help now. But still, in that mode of good help has shifted to a highly technical skill force. And everything we do is technology driven now. And so that is the overall focus. So in my summation here, I'll just hit the high points. They talked about an ROI, meaning a return on investment. Many of us unofficially have sadly gone back and looked at some of our decisions we made when we were kids coming up, and now we're looking on this side and going to retirement especially and going, I didn't have very good return on investment. I put X number of dollars into a college, and on it goes. But what they said is that this kind of reinforcing, if you look at number 2, in general, construction, architecture, transportation, business, financing, engineering, medicine, and computer/technology across the board have better return on investment. Now, some of us would say, well, duh. But we do need to categorize and define where these areas are and get that information to people in the beginning, which for us would be the middle school. So we're looking at targeting the middle school as far as this information is concerned. Number 3 just kind of reiterates what I said. When we put more people who are job ready at 18 to 20 years old, earning, shopping, paying taxes, and keeping themselves from what, as I was telling Jeff, on my own little old cul-de-sac over there, I have 3 couples not married, $250,000 debt. Okay, and so that's a tough way to go. That's a tough way to go. And all right, we got to teach them. So that next bullet down there, college debt is a national problem. Going to work earlier creates a pay-as-you-go lifestyle early. Working early fosters good work ethic, adds a sense of pride. It kind of goes in line with what I've been saying and what market-driven data says. If you start with a more manageable first home and then you work yourself to the next and the next and the next. And I have personal experience with that, as most of us do. The last one there is obviously when we have young people trained and working early in life, we have more shoppers, the tax base increases, and over time you have a much healthier economic outlook for reducing debt, encouraging savings, contributing positively toward the very difficult healthcare affordability issues as well as Social Security system in need of repair. And I'm a big supporter of that. By the way, we have an AMAC meeting with Congressman Steve Toth, Association of Mature American Citizens, and we're looking at Social Security reform as a dual solution. We have those of us who are in retirement, then we have this next group coming behind where Social Security needs something completely different. So I see this tying into a lot of things that we do. So down at the bottom, the findings of this was that college major was the most important choice, not college or not 2-year, 4-year, not even technical or not. So that debate is really much to do about nothing. It's what you choose to get trained in, and also realizing that most of us aren't doing now what we probably were trained to do 40 years ago. Number 3, elite institutions can pay off, but not always. And number 4, as the share of population with college degree rises, employers request higher educational credentials from job candidates, even though the underlying skills required to do those jobs have not changed. So it follows that some college graduates simply take jobs away from non-college graduates. So they're finding that little nugget. This displacement effect likely explains much of the college wage premium. While college graduates benefit, the economy does not grow overall. So in a nutshell, doing the same things over, producing different results is the definition of insanity. We ought to really look, seriously at contributing to this cause of getting kids ready to go to work as soon as possible. So, relationships with civic clubs, partnerships, Jeff and I are working on that type. Jeff has a lot of connections in the business world. I want to keep that liaison with the school district. I have a meeting with Chris at the school, hopefully sometime at the end of this week. Civic meetings, business, entrepreneurial support system of some kind. Beaumont had a young men business league, and they specifically recruited individuals out of that. I would like to see this something that's always where we've got college used to come in the spring, They had a springtime college fair, and you'd walk around and stuff like that. Why not on a regular basis through the curriculum that they already have, establish a lot of our business owners showing up and volunteering their time to tell them tangibly, here's what I did with $500 on a credit card, for example. And you tell them your story. And we get that story in the middle school because, quite frankly, junior and senior, we're going to have a hard time impacting. Because by the time those kids are sophomore, you know what the school was charged with. They got to pass a standardized test by then. Somewhere in there, we've got to create some vision for these kids. And I see that in the school. I haven't had a lot of time personally with them because they put it on Wednesday nights, the meetings. And so I have ministerial things to do. So anyway, I'll continue to make those communications there. I'm hesitant to say anything specific because I don't want to speak on behalf of what I think the school is going to do. But I do know that we need to stay on top of what they want to do. My suspicions are, as Richard and I talked about before, we might have a shared interest moving forward on certain things, and we just need to be sure and stay on top of that.
I just want to, first off, he did most of the heavy lifting on this by going and visiting other CTE programs and really kind of connecting the dots with some of our community leaders. But just to kind of reiterate a little bit, fill in a little bit of the gap, Montgomery ISD superintendent is heavily invested in getting this off the ground, heavily invested. When he shows up to every meeting, it's because he wants to see things move along. And one thing I've learned I'm a business owner, I have 35 full-time employees, and I would say probably 60%, maybe more, maybe more, like closer to 70, do not understand the value of just the basic getting to work on time. And some of them just leave whenever they want to. They're just done, okay, I'm a little tired now, I'm gonna go ahead and go. They don't understand the value of the wage that they're earning, the fact that I look at them as my greatest asset. I mean, I'm buying their time, and their time they only got so much of, and so many breaths in life. So I think it's a gift to have good people come and honor us by giving us their time. Sure, we pay them for it, but if we're going to do that, we want them to be well trained. And what I'm seeing is they come out of high school, they have no understanding of money. They're spending themselves into oblivion before they even start. My kids have all gone through the Dave Ramsey course, to where they're understanding the value of how to reduce debt and create wealth, and just understand how to at least stay even. So what's the choices here? The choices here for some of us. I tell people I love college. It was the best week of my life, but it wasn't for me. So I jumped out into the business world straight away. And not everybody is a college-bound person, but they're told that's what military or college is where they need to go. Why incur, $120,000 to $250,000 in college debt when you could pour maybe 70 to 80 starting out into the community through your works and be completely debt free? So our goal as entrepreneurs and business leaders and civic leaders is to try to grow that section of individuals who want to become experiential learners, and to donate, volunteer, give our time so that they can build their treasure and be supporters of our community through church, through just through their taxes and tithes, and become somebody that's a responsible citizen, and maybe sit up in these positions at some point, helping others grow the next. So I don't want to go on the soapbox forever, but thank you, Byron, for putting this all together, and the community is deeply invested in seeing it go forward. This is going to be a huge thing, I think. It's going to be every bit as big as making the city pretty. So yeah, we're definitely on the right track, and I think everybody's on board with it.
So what do we see as the next action item on this? What do you see as the path forward? It sounds like we're partnering with the school.
Yes. So I think what we're finding is that, as always, the wheels of government run a little slower than we're ready to jump out and move forward. But I think we're looking at, this is maybe a 1 to 3 year project, because there's still facilities that have to be built. So what we're doing is, the action item is, we're cultivating the entrepreneurs who want to say yes, and getting them on board and saying, okay, when we're ready to launch, are you ready to go with us? Yes, we are. We're getting the politicians on board. Are you ready? And it seems to be everybody is ready to go. It's just a matter of, putting the right money in the pockets of the people who need to build the facilities to get it going and moving forward. So it doesn't sound like we're that far away. I would say 1 to 3 years, maybe 5 on the outside for having a full-blown healthy program, but for sure within the next 1 to 3 years we're going to see some definitive action on
It could be that, as it was with Brian's situation, it could be with the MEDC over time, and even as early as this next formation of the next year's budget, as we find out details along the way. Like I say, I walk into a certain part of their building and I see a tag there, and the guy told me it was a $50,000 machine donated by Bryan City Council.
Right.
And slash MEDC, something to that effect. And then they put that on their donations wall and stuff like that. And so once we get more details over the next several months in looking at some sort of budget process, we may want to put that money and earmark it or something similar to what we're doing with the water infrastructure needs and so forth.
And I hear Ryan, I hear what you're saying. I mean, you know, what's the action item? What can we do right now? We're sort of at the mercy a little bit of MISD because they have the kids and they have the vision, and so we kind of have to, it's really building those relationships right now so that we understand and align with their vision and see where we can partner with them to help grow their influence with these kids who have a heart for the part, who want to jump out and do something a little bit different. But you can tell they're very much on board with this. They've already got a CTE program, and they can see how popular it is. I mean, there's a lot of kids that want to bypass some of these traditional routes and jump right in and start making a living. So I don't think we're far away.
Would it be helpful? I think it would be helpful if maybe we developed a list of goals that we have over the next 1 to 3 years, so that we can have some type of something to measure our success by. And also to give me, who's not on this subcommittee, I guess, whatever, an idea of what direction we're going in the long run. I get it, conceptually, big vision-wise, but having something, you know, a little bit more tangible would be helpful.
I think just understanding what the tea leaves are saying to begin with. Now we kind of have a vision that they are in alignment with what we want and what we think is good for our community. That was number one. We got that. Everybody seems to think they're like-minded, so that's a good start. But you're right. Anything worth doing is worth measuring. So we definitely need to have some definitive goals. And of course, Byron and I can work on that. He's out there every week trying to create these relationships that we know going forward. But I think the first step is just getting everybody to buy in, and that part is done. It's just a matter of now funding and fine tuning. And I think we can start small. We don't have to start big. We can build a ghost kitchen, have culinary come in, and little things like that. There's business and community leaders already ready to rock and roll. So it's just a matter of who wants to participate and how can we start participating, and how can MEDC support that. I think it's for the board to decide.
And I wonder if this thing that we're doing, would it focus on the industries that are specific to our city, which I see as potentially just tourism and service industry, I guess?
Yeah.
Is kind of where our focus would be, or?
Yeah. It's the low-hanging fruit, I mean, it's where we already have people in place that could easily, divert a little time and energy to growing, the younger generation. It's getting to the seventh, like Byron was saying, the 7th and 8th graders. Those are by the time they get to be sophomores, they've already made a choice. They're going to college, they're going to gap year programs, they're going to the military, or they're just going to the workforce. The ones that go in the workforce have no clue as to really what that means to them, Am I going to work a minimum wage job, or am I going to try to become a welder somewhere? I don't have any skill set. So it's a catch-22. A lot of people don't want to hire people who have no experience, and yet how do you get experience if you don't start somewhere? Yeah. So I think the thing is to at least introduce them at an early age to what they might want to be when they grow up, because
I think it's great.
Yeah, so that's our beginning.
So how would this program be funded? Would you look at grants or sponsorship from companies?
It's going to be a combination, depending on, some is going to be equipment based because you got to have facilities to be able to teach and train. The other will be corporate sponsorships, partnerships with respect to people donating time, treasure, and equipment as well. But it depends on what field you're talking about. We've already started putting our equipment, as we're growing as a restaurant, we're putting our other equipment away in warehouses to be used for this secondary kitchen one day, so that we know, we have tools to train on. They don't get thrown away; they just get put in storage until the day comes. But it's just a matter really of getting other people to engage, and that's where this gentleman right here has been extraordinarily instrumental, because he's got the time. I'm running 4 businesses, and he's out there beating the streets, getting people lined up and ready to go. So,
well, if you've got everybody who appears to be on board, I mean, I guess the first thing you do is I agree with Ryan. We need to get some timelines or get some goals established get some timelines, I mean, and say, okay, this is the goal, we're gonna hit this by this, we're gonna need this dollar amount. I mean, let's just run it like a business.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's,
I mean, I think we can do something aside from, maybe take the lead. I say you don't have to be great to get started, just have to start to be great. I think we have the synergy, at least on this board and within the city and in the community, to do something before the school district, which, their plans are long. And like Myra said, we can't really discuss. I mean, it's public knowledge what they want to do, but what we can do as a starter place. I mean, we're excited to do it, but we could use some extra input as far as you're a business owner.
Yeah, I have a relationship with the Black Walnut Cafes as well.
So yeah,
they throw away a lot of equipment sometimes. That's good. Yeah.
I mean, we don't know what to do with it. We're not going to resell it. We're not going to put it on Facebook. I mean, we just put it in a garage. But why not put it in a ghost kitchen and let young wannabes, whether it's culinary or, I mean, it doesn't matter. You want to serve, you want to be. For me, that's the industry I'm in. But anything to do with hospitality, like Ryan said, service, any kind of service industry, it's all related. It's about sharing.
do the school districts have facilities, have buildings to put this stuff in?
No, that's part of the issue.
That's where we're running into the roadblock right now. They want them. But they need funding to pull it together. Right. But when they do it, there's a little more oversight. There's legislature at the state level that has to get involved. It doesn't mean we can't start somewhere to get something going. And we're both kind of in the spot now where we're like, everybody wants to do it. Now where do we go?
Right. When we about the only thing that was not a consensus was there were some people who thought that there shouldn't be one facility but two, which I can already see that being problematic logistics-wise, but also in a district that's still looking at a possible third high school someday, with the growth that they have. So why would you want to have a third facility and run buses here and there and all that? Right. I can see the scheduling nightmare going now. I think it needs to be one place, but it needs to be a massive place. And if they get the vision of the CTE technology person, that's going to be a pretty massive offering of 10 to 12 courses on what typically is 3 to 4. And so they have a big vision there. They need a large building and large funds to do it and a place that's logical to put it. And all that stuff is still up in the air or secret. Yeah. So we don't even have that to go on.
Now with the old school, it have a full functioning working kitchen. The old admin, is admin building now?
Yes. Well, do they have a full functioning kitchen yet?
They do.
Yeah, you can start there like a satellite and kind of grade it till you get another facility. So if the schools is willing to partake in it, they got a kitchen. So
right.
I'm sure maybe some stuff needs to be done.
Well, there's a lot of things that have to be worked out in terms of who gets in, who doesn't. What's the curriculum? Who's teaching it? There's a lot of what ifs right now that we don't have answers to, and whether or not they would even allow us to use that facility.
This concept's already being used a lot already. Jim McInvale's doing it on the private side.
Yeah, I just noticed that.
He's teaching these kids this thing, but the bottom line is you work for him for 4 hours every day.
That's right.
I mean, he's getting labor out of this thing.
Exactly.
And they're getting a skill out of it. So it's not a new thing. It's just selling it to a new area.
Well, we need enough businesses to partner together to say we're willing to give these kids a shot. I mean, for one, I never could get hired on as a server when I was growing up because I never had any experience. So now I got lots of experience, but I see kids that come in with the same thing. They're like, I've never done this before. Well, I'm going to teach you. We're going to grow you. We're going to show you. And for some people, it's a great thing. Hospitality, it's in their blood. They love it. For others, it's a nightmare. So at least you find out what you don't want to do while you're trying to figure out what you do want to do.
Well, and there's a lot of industrial growth coming around here also. It's not necessarily the hospitality.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, homes are being built. You need contractors. People who can pour concrete. There's all kinds of other types of engineering jobs and things like that.
Well, you guys is building a great infrastructure for this business, and right now, you need capital to do anything.
Yep.
I would start soliciting companies from $10,000 up. that would be, I know that's easy said than done.
That's why I'm looking at the civic, I'm taking the civic organization angle, who has contacts to a little more easterly venture towards Conroe, and find some organizations willing to come in and create these partnerships.
But like Byron said, it couldn't be more timely right now, because we're all, as business leaders, we're all stuck in the same spot. We cannot find labor. I mean, I'll have 20 people apply for a job and one may show up. We've got to the point where we just call them and coddle them and talk to them and get them interested. It's like you got to sell them on the job.
Just did that.
It's crazy. I've never seen anything like, but by this, I've been a business owner for 40 years. I've never seen the labor market like this in my 40 years. So, if you can't change your circumstances, we have to change our perspective. And our perspective has got to change to where we're doing things a completely different way, and that means we may have to grow our own Cabbage Patch Kids. We need our kids that we can grow and create and create influencers, and if we're pouring into them, I guarantee you they'll pour into our community once we grow them.
Absolutely.
So I don't know what the next step is, Ryan. I mean, I'm all ears for the detail guys that want to put the goals together. We need a playbook, because we're kind of at the mercy of funding at this point.
You can't start a restaurant until you have a menu.
Right.
One thought that I have that might be an interim step, both to have ties with businesses and to help our local economy. Something that Byron said was the business entrepreneurial support group. I love the term that is. If we could get a series of how-to classes in various things, whether it's social media, whether it's graphic designs for menus, marketing, the nuts and bolts of how to get people in your door, whether it's in business insurance and, what all you need to protect your personal assets versus your business assets, finance, when you need an accountant, when you can use QuickBooks, when, that kind of thing. If we could have a series of one per year, or one per month rather, and really run it for small businesses. I think we've had interest from our own population of entrepreneurs, as well as people who are thinking about being entrepreneurs. I think that if we ask certain people that are in your meeting or Jeff, your meeting in the community to lead these discussions, that might have lead to a deeper relationship with them or their corporation, which would hopefully lead to more successful funding requests later. But then, also it would be a step to what we're bringing to the community and delivering to the community, and potentially helping our current businesses and people who are considering starting businesses.
I'm just curious, does the MEDC have access to, I would say, some of the top businesses in the area that might have an interest? I mean, do we know who these leaders are? Are they just phantom corporations? Or I know we all have different names that we use that may not be our DBA. But is there a contact list that we could start reaching out, and at least find out what their core competencies might be, and maybe just host a roundtable to get things kicked off as a starting step? And I don't know.
It's definitely going to need to be something that gets to the roundtable stage, that gets all the players to the table, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then I envision something that comes out of that says, let's go ahead and get started, for example, with the 11th, 10th, 11th, 12th group and grooming them for the things that are pertinent for them faced out there, while we come in behind with more of the jobs and the skill sets and the things of the future to get them thinking of what track do I want to go into, because that's one of the things the curriculum people are going to know as soon as possible. What track do you want to go into? So we're shifting from the old college track or not college track, which was very skewed in a ridiculous fashion, to now saying, okay, everybody needs to have one of these 4 or 5 or 6 tracks that put you in a vocation ASAP type thing. So that's where they're schooling the people on the lower end to come into these tracks. So these tracks are being built as we speak, as they gather the information. But again, it's flexible. As Ryan said, the needs of local right now will shift over time. And so it's a constantly flexible process. But what can we do is get to the people who are the oldest, get them some skill sets that are more along the lines of financial planning and things of that nature first, and then come in behind with more of the specific trainings with the younger kids.
And I think to hear you talk, Becky, that's kind of, I mean, there's a lot of business leaders that don't have a clue as how to run a business, and so training them, just the very basics. I can think of one that Byron had mentioned to me that's having trouble with labor and everything. They're brand new. They don't know what they don't know. And I remember clearly when I never started a restaurant in my life. I never even worked in one. And I can tell you, I had more spankings than you could possibly imagine. But I had a lot of people that came alongside me along the way and said, think about doing it this way, or thinking about doing it that way.
And if you're thinking about what companies to approach, I mean, don't keep it to just Montgomery, because, if you look at, our sales tax numbers and where the people, all the demographic stuff we've looked at, people don't necessarily live and work here. They work here a little bit, but in Conroe and the Woodlands. So, look at the list of the Chamber of Commerce members here in Conroe and the Woodlands, and, have a list of the top employers that you think that our students would like to work for, or that, we would like to do business with in that network. We've had a couple people in the city be part of the Montgomery County, what did Mike just graduate from, Richard?
Leadership in Montgomery.
Yes, that, and find out, what we have, the contacts with. Chris obviously has lots of good contacts throughout Montgomery County. You guys are probably a little bit more Harris County, but you're probably Sludge in the contact area. We have a lot of people that we already know who can help us stair step to the people that we need to meet to help our community.
I think it goes back to what Ryan said. What's our goals? What's our step one, step two? The thing I get frustrated, we meet once a month, but sometimes I don't feel like we accomplish a lot. I mean, we do somewhat accomplish some things. I mean, we have events, we have other things, but this is a big ask.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do, and what day are we going to start?
Well, let's start.
Well, I think you got to get some literature, a plan.
Some kind of collaborative to show
something from is where we can give it to people.
Yeah.
And say, this is what you want. You want to be a part of this entrepreneurship, because everybody want to make the employers. The people that can come to work.
Right.
I do a lot of work with Spirit of Texas banks. A lot of the banks, they change teller and they're really good with these kids, And but I think the banks, NOVR companies, different guys like that, if they got a program in place and get these guys to buy into it, they need young minds. So
Well, just teach
So I
them
think
basic
Dean
work.
would be on board, Dean Bass.
Dean would be Dean and Hope. Yeah.
Yeah, Dean's a great guy. So there's no question that we could get, I think, business leaders involved, but we don't. Here's what we found out. Okay, you tasked us with figuring out what it is. Byron did a great job. We know that the ISDs are involved. They want to participate. They understand the need. The business leaders understand the need. There's nobody. The ISD is mobilizing. Don't get me wrong. They're getting ready to rock and roll. But the business leaders themselves don't have a clue as to where to begin, because we're all running a business, and we're trying, and we don't have enough help to do that. So we're in a spot to where we're working the 50, 60, 70 hour weeks because we don't have anybody to help.
Yeah.
So we need to carve out some time to say, let's groom our next leaders, and who are they going to be, and who gets in and who doesn't get in, and how do you qualify them to get in? Because we don't want to just take anybody. We want to take people who have the ability to be superstars. And so you have to have some way to pre-qualify these kids. And I don't know where I'm at them.
That's a real slippery slope.
Yeah, it is.
Because a whole lot of times kids may have a desire to do it. And us as business leaders and adults, we got to give them the tools they need to get to that point.
Gotcha.
So I think for a qualification standpoint, I think that, of course, do you vet them? I think the kids' interest are showing interest.
Right, that's a vetting right there.
Right.
They're interested.
If they're interested,
Yeah.
I think that's the caveat.
They just have to have a heart for the part. Right?
Exactly.
They got to want it. They got to want it.
If you say, look, show up at this meeting at 7 o'clock
Right.
p.m. because we want to help you with your future goals.
Right.
If those kids are there, if they got a good parent, send information home to the parents. So
Yeah,
if that kid show up,
at 6:50.
that's a plus because
Yeah.
you know you got of course Fellowship Montgomery, they deal with all sorts of kids.
Right.
Zach, your son, Sam.
Right.
You know that's even something just literature. Just something you can hand them.
Right.
You know to get the interest because some kids have no clue.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, look, I'm 62 and I still have no clue.
Yeah. Right.
I don't even know what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
But I know one thing, if you have, like you said, if you have a heart for the part, if you care, you know, in other words, if you're enthusiastic, I'll take somebody that's enthusiastic and no training every day of the week.
Yeah. Right.
Because they want to be there and they want to learn and they care. That's great.
My granddad said if you got a foundation and 4 walls, you can put in it whatever you want.
That's it. That's
The
exactly.
4 walls and the low bearing walls, and that's just being there.
Yeah.
So you can put a den, living room, whatever inside.
Right.
But if you got the 4 walls
Right.
and the foundation, you can
Yeah.
go. You know?
So where do we begin? I mean, what does this board do to encourage people to go now? Let's start.
Well, I think first of all, we need, with our discussion, we need to find out, get the bullet points. What's going to get us from point A to point Z
Okay.
and present it.
Well, let's talk the end game then. Where's the end game? What do we want to achieve? Do we want to get them to where they go, that's what I want to be when I grow up? I mean, do we want to introduce them to a variety of what you...
Well, I think a whole lot of companies would be open for tours and taking them in and seeing and
that's
showing,
a good
being
idea.
hands-on. Restaurants, banks,
It sounds like we just need to rewind and go back to the 60s and early 70s, what they were teaching in the schools. I mean, because when we came up, we had shop.
that's right, yeah.
I mean, you know, and it was
Metal
great.
shop, wood
Yeah,
shop,
I'm not a
yeah.
mechanic or anything like that, but I mean, at least I know how to tinker on stuff.
That's part of the whole thing, because you still got, you know, you got this initiative, you got the superintendent worked for an entire year to get buy-in, all right? Then you hear the frustration, which is typically, part of it's bureaucracy, but my experience in over 30 years of public school, it is what it is. Back in the 80s, I was like, blow it up and start over. Okay, so that caused me to want to be an administrator, make a difference, blah, blah, blah. You talk about parents and having parents and all this. Parents still not 100% sold. Then you've got to get campus level buy-in. Then the campus level buy-in that starts with the principal goes through these counselors that are creatures of habit, believe me. And so this is a process that this is growing pains of the school that we can expect. In the meantime, if I can just get to a school official, which is difficult because they are running around like chickens with their head cut off right now, dealing with COVID and other types of issues and not having enough teachers. So that brings me to the one speculation that I have. Great schools, I've been a principal, how hard is it to get anybody to come to my school and teach when they can go out in the real world and make serious money? And that goes for your APs and every other position, right? You're a nonprofit, you make a nonprofit price. We've got to create some people, whether it be volunteer or otherwise, who are ready to come in and staff. So I subbed last year, just as an example, and I'm in there and it's a criminal justice deal. Well, they hadn't been able to, it was Lake Creek. They hadn't had a teacher at that point in 4 months. This was month number 7. And they just sat and they watched, I'm not saying anything. Anyway, CSI and stuff like that. So, well, I've been there and done that. You can't get these people in. Easier said than done is what I'm saying, okay? So it could be that this business partnership is majoring in creating a teaching force of some kind that the school can pull from. Because typically, especially the smaller schools struggle with this. You got to pipe it in, whether it's college course or whatever else. And you have to pipe a lot of stuff in. I couldn't find a foreign language teacher for nothing. And you want to try to grow your curriculum and stuff like that, so they're already hurting for all the central teachers. Then you put them out there in the shop and the other, and you got people that need to do business. So how do you pull the business owners in to say, listen, I think maybe we have a solution for you. Would you be interested? And then we sell the idea saying, guys and gals, let's create your own workforce. Get them excited about getting some teaching available. This is an animal, y'all. This ain't no quick fix. and this will be a process, but I've got to be able to see what is the school thinking? What do they need from us?
Well, you know, we've already got, like you said, Mattress Mac, we've already got a template. I mean,
Yeah.
somebody's already doing
Well,
it.
there's other schools that are doing, there's a lot of homeschools that even.
Well, I was going to mention the homeschool community. A lot of I'm a homeschool dad. You got other. I know there's other business leaders that are homeschoolers that are, you know, they're used to their wives going out and training and teaching and working in co-ops. You've got everything. You've got tennis pros. You've got that. You know, you want to grow up and be a tennis pro one day. You got graphics, web design. Culinary, people who mechanics. There's some that own Christian Brothers, mechanics. There's all kinds of different trades out there, welding shops and stuff like that, and they're all homeschool moms and dads who have skill sets and are willing to teach. But how do you bridge that gap between, traditional education facilities and the homeschool community?
You may have to do some of the mentoring actually in that shop, and have these successful business people say, I'm willing to take five
Right.
kids, bring them. You know, let's do some hands-on, and then we can go back and get the theory later. Let's get some hands-on applied science.
So how is Mattress Mac doing it? That's what I'm wondering. I mean, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Somebody's already cracked the code here. Is he going out and getting high school students, or are they coming to him and applying outside of the school ISD?
No idea.
So maybe that's a good spot. I don't know, Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we just need to figure out other entities who do something like this and see, you know, looking at, starting a business, how do other people, what their business models look like, and what's what we need to do here to copy and paste and modify for what we want. I don't know what's out there, so.
Yeah.
But it might be worth just doing the research, seeing what works for other people, what do other cities or EDCs do. In this case, is it more of a co-op thing, or is it, you know, maybe you do feelers. Maybe you go out to the different businesses around here and say, are they willing to do a co-op type thing? Maybe it's something the EDC can support, or does it need to be more of a central training facility? I don't know.
See,
But to me, I'm blind. I don't know what else, what works out there. And
Right.
I'd be curious to kind of do some research and see what's working, maybe what do those models look like, and then that can be our goal. Is we want something similar to that, so let's create a plan in place to create that our own business model. I guess.
I think there's a heart to do it. I think that we just need to have more buy-in. Nobody knows about it. So we've got to advertise it, get the word out, and like you said, if it comes from MEDC, it'll have a lot more impact. If it comes from Joe Blow business owner walking out there and go, hey guys, you want to participate in something? They're going to be like, I'm a little busy. But if the city invites them to the party, and we have a nice little round table where we can get buy-in and understanding from people, like-minded individuals who all have the same problem, I think we probably can get in with, like Ryan said, a model that we know is already functioning and working. We probably have a good chance of having some success at getting their buy-in 100%.
Jeff, I think, as you've had a lot of discussion here with this tonight, I think as you and Byron look at this a little more and work with MISD, take some of this. If the two of you want to get together here at some point between this meeting and the next meeting with me, try to help focus this a bit more to bring back to the MEDC, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, it's just so big right now. It's bigger than us because we don't know where all the.
Right. I mean, just in the things that this board's discussed, it's not really one thing. There's probably at least 3 distinct things that I can pull out of here, and I think some of that's probably better led by MISD, but with our involvement. But I see room for some of it to be better led by MEDC. In conjunction with MISD.
See, we're more fleet-footed than they are, and they have government oversight and things that we maybe don't have as much of. I mean, I'm talking about like state-level government oversight. That whereas we have one mission, and that's to grow businesses through our influence, and the ways that we can do that, I think, are a little bit more. We have a wider range of ways to go about it.
And where your school districts have never had to make payroll.
Exactly.
There's a big difference.
That's true.
Government money, you've never made a payroll.
Yeah.
You're never worried about it.
Well, like we're
I'm
we're
not sure I
invested.
would agree with that. We've worried about the payroll many times.
Well, yeah, no, but we're staying within your budget.
Yeah.
If someone's allowed.
All right, so
not
Rich,
what-
I understand. I mean, we can't do this all night, but the more we got into it, the more we realized how big this issue really is. But it's not insurmountable. It just needs more definition. And I don't know if we're capable by ourselves of creating that.
Yeah, I was going to suggest one, if we can find a good model, we can just copy and paste.
Yeah.
Or maybe we need to ask for outside help somehow. And I don't know if there are professional consulting services that can help us plan something like this or not.
I'll check into that. I've made some
Because
good
I know
notes here.
we're all busy, and it seems like it's much bigger than any one of us could probably handle on our volunteer free time.
Or just
Exactly.
recognize that there are parts that are beyond our budget, beyond our time capabilities, and instead do what it is that we can do, but do it well.
Maybe we're limited to just going to MID.
Whether it's roundtable meetings with businesses to, keep them aware of what's going on at MISD so that, they work up to the plan and we get concrete commitments from them as a business entity so that it's not Joe Businessman, or, the student tours that were mentioned, or the entrepreneur classes, things that we can do to keep this motoring along until MISD does a big bond issue. They make a big campus, they have all these big machines and classes and students that they vetted and run through so that they have a crop of eager and talented and qualified students that then we can, push through the pipeline and into these other community jobs and businesses that we found for them for mentors or for whatever. We can kind of grow the field for them.
I think what you're saying is we're almost like a proof of concept for MISD. I'm not saying that they don't know that it doesn't already work,
Right.
but if we can just take the lead as a economic development corporation and show them this works, I think it'll be encouraging, not just to the people that are on the receiving end of all this great knowledge, because we all were mentored by somebody at some point. As a business leader, believe me, I didn't do it on my own. There were lots of times when I called my mentor and said, how do I do this, or what can to have that other that tenured voice at the other end, that professor of life, who's had their share of hard knocks, to be able to give you good advice.
If we have the big commercial landowners saying to their employees that they're looking forward to this coming into fruition, and they want the bond issue to pass because they think it'll be successful, they think it'll help their business, then their employees, who might be parents, will think that this is good for my student because their employer is saying good things about it, and then you have more people voting positively about it, you have more people talking to their children about this option, and you just have a lot more positive momentum towards it because it's out in the community and people are seeing what it can bring to
Agreed.
the employers and the jobs and the factories.
But what I think may really speed up the process, I think that we have to be limited. You may do, whether it's a year, a quarter, or every other quarter, be limited on how much we offer.
Right.
Get in one category and develop that and get those kids through that and then come up with another. You may want to do that yearly, bi-quarterly, or just change the direction of the courses during the course of the year or every year, for the whole year with 20 students at this. Then the following year we'll do this,
I think people love, my wife teaches forensic studies in a co-op, homeschool co-op, and it is so engaging. Interactive experiences are so engaging to kids because they're looking at this device that gives them a new message every few seconds. Pop up, pop, 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 all kinds of, they're getting constant interactions. And when you're sitting there looking at a book, you're not getting constant interactions. They're used to seeing life from a different perspective, if you will. And so to be able to give them an interactive experience with business owners who are successful, You know, they don't have to be, all they have to do is duplicate it. You don't have to be crazy creative. You just have to do what they do to start and then make it your own as you develop your knowledge about your core competencies in that particular field. But I think interactive experiences are going to go a long ways towards teaching these kids about what they want to be when they grow up. So anyway, we're definitely all in. We just need a little more direction as far as how do we get everybody else in so that we can grow their influence. All right, Richard. Sorry, it's a long one. I could have just shut up after Byron, but I know
Where's the fun in that, right?
yeah, well, we were not doing a meeting next week, so we want to get to it next month, yeah.
But my offer still stands.
Okay.
You and Byron look at that. I'm happy to meet with you, help you, maybe be a sounding board for both of you, as well as listen back on this conversation and try to tie these together and flesh out some specific directions that we can go ourselves. And also, well, maybe what ideas do we present to MISD in terms of how we're working with them.
Okay.
And they may also have some ideas of where they see where we can plug into them as well.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one thing, the word enthusiasm is not an understatement. Everybody wants the same thing. So where there's synergy, there's an opportunity. And I think we're heading in that direction. So that's all I got about it.
And I think I sense that enthusiasm for everyone here in that conversation as well.
Yeah.
Well, with everyone's permission, then we'll move on without action from item number 4, because I think it's mostly administrative. The next step on item number 4. If you all agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Item number 5, consideration of possible action to amend the bylaws of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation.
As exciting as the last item was, this item will be dry, but I think a necessary item. I put in my discussion 3.02, it's actually 3.2 of the bylaws of the MEDC, don't properly describe the 2-year terms directors are serving, and the 2-year terms are set by statute. It describes 2-year terms, and it goes on to say, and I'll quote, "The terms of 4 directors shall begin in January 1 of each odd-numbered year and expire on December 31 of the next following odd-numbered year. The terms of 3 directors shall begin on January 1 of each even-numbered year and shall expire on December 31 of the next following even-numbered year." Those describe 3-year terms, and yet you have 2-year terms. If you look below that, I strike out from the term odd number year and even number year after the words next following, and so that it goes from January 1 of 1 year to December 31 of the following year. So those are 2-year terms. So that is the change I recommend to be made in the attached 2 pages later, page 2 of the bylaws, page 25 of your packet, is where it actually falls within the bylaws.
So is it just 6 and 1, half a dozen the other, just a rewording of the way it is described?
Not exactly, because essentially it says, for what it says now, if I use real years, for an odd number year, say use 2021, it says if someone starts January 1st of 2021 and ends December 31st of 2023. So they serve all of 21, 22, and 23.
Right.
That's 3 years,
Right.
but you have a 2-year term.
Oh, that's weird.
That's why it's here.
Okay.
What it should just say is,
It was an unnecessary statement, I would think. You say odd number of years, 2 years, you have it covered, right? So,
which is why in the wording I leave it mostly saying, but just strike, instead of saying the next following odd number year in my example, just say of the next following year. So you would serve January 1 of 2021 through December 31 of 22, 21, 22,
Right.
for 2 years.
So they were meant to be 2-year terms anyway, right?
Exactly, and that's how it's been observed.
As I say, by state statute, we're required to serve 2-year terms, so the bylaws are technically not legal.
Oh, they just need to be amended then.
Right, we have not been serving illegally, but the bylaws were confusingly not in compliance with the state statute.
So making this change is not going to mess anything up currently in place?
Making this change will conform the bylaws to what we've been
Okay.
doing. What we've been doing is legally
In
correct.
practice, we've been doing it right
Yes.
on
The
paper.
bylaws were incorrect.
So I move that we pass that we amend the bylaws as stated in their paragraph thing.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we amend the bylaws of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation to conform to 2-year terms. This motion is
It won't take effect until city council also approves it.
Okay. Any other questions, discussions? All those in favor of amending the bylaws of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation to conform to 2-year terms, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously, and we will amend the bylaws of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation to 2-year terms. Item number 6, discussion and consideration and presumably possible action to set the date for the January 2022 regular meeting and the 2022 annual meeting of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation.
Okay, 2 items here. First, we need to talk about setting the date. The third Monday of the month in the evening is the regular date for MEDC meeting. That's Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday holiday. So does the board want to meet that night? In the past, many years, the MEDC board has met that night. Last year, that meeting was moved. So we need action to determine, do you want to meet that night? Would you like to meet the following night?
It's the third month, or the third Tuesday.
Yeah, it'd be the third.
Is that day also a free day?
It's a free day for here because the city has this room occupied the first, second, and fourth Tuesdays of the month. So
And at the same time, we would be fusing 2 expected meetings into one.
Right, and then the second part of this is each year the MEDC is required to hold an annual meeting. Typically that meeting's been held in January at the beginning of the calendar year. Business of that meeting includes a review of the past year, establish goals for the year that's ahead, and it's been held in conjunction with the regular meeting. We'll have some separate line items that delineate that. Annual meeting activities also include an annual financial report, electing the board officers as new terms begin, so that we redo the board officer positions. If there's any changes on the board, we will approve resolutions to change signers on the banking account as appropriate, and if there's any other annual business as necessary. So,
Well, I make a motion, we approve item number 6.
Which day?
We gotta have a date, don't we?
Yes.
Oh, to move it to the Tuesday?
I thought it was
the
Thursday.
choice is either be Monday night, the 17th, or Tuesday night, the 18th.
Oh, I see.
And because Monday is the holiday, I'll be here when y'all want me here.
I'm not opposed to moving it, but the 18th is my anniversary. So.
Oh, well.
I may not show up. That's gonna be important. He's got another important meeting already
Let's
scheduled.
point out, that's never worked for me.
Why can't we just leave it on the day that it's scheduled for? Is that okay, or that works? You okay? Yeah. Let's just leave it on the day.
I'm good either way,
Yeah.
but sometimes in the past, people have gone, oh, I didn't know we were meeting that night because it's a holiday, after the fact.
Who gets a holiday anymore?
Yeah.
I'll move that we move the date to the 17th,
Well,
yeah.
17th is the regular day.
Yeah, well then just leave it on the regular
You
day.
need to set the date for the annual meeting.
So we don't have to do anything then?
No, you need to set the date of the annual meeting for the 17th.
Okay.
In conjunction with the regular meeting.
I move that we set the regular meeting to January 17th, 2022 in conjunction with our annual meeting on the same date.
I second.
Second?
It is moved and seconded that we set the date of the 2022 annual meeting for January 17th in conjunction with our regular meeting. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of setting January 17th as the date of our 2022 annual meeting of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation in conjunction with our regular meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will set January 17th as the date of the annual meeting of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation in conjunction with our regular meeting. And that meeting is to be held at 101 Old Plantersville Road in Montgomery, Texas. Just in case you were unaware.
I'm not sure if Jeff had 2022 down, correct?
Yeah.
Item
calendar
number
straight.
7, consideration of possible action regarding Houston-Galveston Area Council and possible future grant opportunities.
I'll start with, be happy to have input from Gunda back here, who I think has more information about this than me. The Texas, from what I do know, the Texas Department of Agriculture funds community development grants through the Houston Galveston Area Council, HGAC, for infrastructure projects, often for water and wastewater facilities, street improvements and drainage, all of which we know from the downtown master plan, are items that will be work that needs to be done. And we're looking to discuss the consultants we have, as well as reach out, including the grant consultants, and look elsewhere for how we can best make an application for those. I reached out on Tuesday or Wednesday last week to HGAC. I've yet to communicate or coordinate on a phone call back with significant information, so I really don't know much more than this at the moment. I'm trying to explore that. I've also, there's an agenda item following that's similar, and I've reached out to the city's regular grant coordinator, and they're working on coordinating a meeting with me over the phone with the people who do who are the ones who go out after those grants.
How big is the Houston Galveston Area Council's footprint?
It's slightly larger than what you typically think of as the Houston Galveston area in terms of, it's not just Galveston,
We're in it.
Fort Bend, Montgomery. It goes wider east to west.
Montgomery County is in it, so.
Right. But is it like mostly urban, half rural?
It's all the counties around the Houston region, basically.
It's
Just
8 or 10 counties,
Yeah.
basically, Galveston out.
It's pretty, it's where your urban development is, but along the outer edges of all those, like Montgomery, they go through the suburban into the rural areas.
And is it the Texas Department of Agriculture that funds it, or is it the U.S. Department of Agriculture? Is that where they get all their money?
HGAC gets their money from multiple locations.
Oh, okay.
They get it from TxDOT, CDBG, they'll get stuff from GLO. It's a wide variety of grants that they have opportunities to help you with. It's not just those programs, and it's whenever they get those fundings that can help you depending on what type of grant you're wanting to move forward with.
So it's not necessarily their pot of money, it's somebody else's that they are like a grant writer for, or?
They're they're essentially the grant administrator
Okay.
for the different types of grants. It's not technically their money, it's money that they're given to either by the state or the federal government, depending on the program.
Okay. So how do cities rank within that, or is there like a beauty contest that you can join, or what are the politics of this organization?
It depends on the type of grant you're going after. If it's a transportation grant, they have a transportation subcommittee that meets to develop the long-range plans. Certain transportation programs, projects have to be on that plan to get funded, and then they have different breakdowns for those transportation grants that get put out. So it just depends. There's no technical beauty contest. Sometimes you don't even have to be within the HGAC region. County of Wharton just joined, which isn't contiguous. It's not contiguous to the original 8 counties. It was Harrison, all surrounding counties was the original COG, Council of Government, which is HGAC. Wharton has now joined that. Now, Washington County and Brenham, they've actually gotten some fundings from HGAC, even though they're in what's VD Valley Council of Governments. So there's different opportunities depending on how they present them at the time. City of Tomball got a 25,000.
28 million.
Well, they got the 28 million for the capital projects for 2920 Main Street reconstruction and streetscape improvements. They also got, I think, 50,000 in the past for the downtown restrooms. City of Brenham, I believe, got some funding for some walking trails to connect the park system to the downtown area. So it just depends on what they're putting out at the time and what funding is being allocated and what discretion, what fund it's coming from.
Especially with all the different categories, because I looked on their website and I saw the transportation group, I saw that they have a board meeting actually tomorrow. It's like the third Tuesday of every month type thing. In your experience is, politics being what it is, but representation on a regular basis, do you find that the cities that really concentrate on that get access to a lot of help in their cities, or is it just pretty much they try to spread the wealth, or what?
They're pretty good about spreading the wealth. They do have their membership where they want members for the 50,000 population and smaller to be on their boards. They put those out. Not every city wants to do it. Some do. Tomball had general representation, I think, at one point, and they've gotten quite a few grants from HGAC. Obviously, there's other counties and jurisdictions outside the area that have gotten it, and you know they don't sit on their board.
So just using Tomball as an example, does their city provide regular representation there? Is that what you're saying may have
No,
helped?
I don't believe there's a regular person that goes to every meeting.
Okay.
I don't think they represent the 50.
Do they have a representative on their staff, perhaps, that does this? This is just what they do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Richard, have you ever gone to any of those meetings?
I don't know. I didn't know to look at doing that in there.
And there are a lot of subcommittee meetings. There's transportation, I think they have drainage. They used to have GIS for their data collection.
I mean, certainly participation in some of that stuff is encourage relationship building. I mean, the city of Tomball was a process, okay? TxDOT was doing a corridor study for access management. That came in through Tomball, okay, which triggered a little center study, which I think TxDOT got involved with. And some of the things that were identified through there, the city of Tomball started to implement. Okay, so when the call for projects came up, we coordinated with TxDOT, and they went bing, 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 bing. You guys put in for this, we got your back. And so we got a support letter out of TxDOT for the project on their facility.
TxDOT looks for sponsors, and the local jurisdiction is the sponsor for the project. And when you have buy-in from the local jurisdictions, it goes much further than TxDOT saying, we want to put money towards this project. HGAC, will you help us fund it? It needs a sponsor to help get it that little boost, and local sponsors is the biggest way to do it.
Well, I've talked to the staff before, and Richard, if this is, I've asked before if there's anything that the staff needed to go be a liaison to represent the city or whatever. I'm semi-retired. Whatever you need, I'd be happy to represent. To whatever extent, Richard, you would desire to ask me to do that, I would be happy to do that.
I think it might be interesting. Are there things that we could learn about, how to set up some of our grants or just framing our discussions and things like that by watching how other projects come through that might enable us to just discuss things differently or prioritize things differently?
I would say yes. I mean, that part of the networking, okay, you'll be engaging or have an opportunity to talk to some of those people at HGAC, TxDOT, who are evaluating that stuff.
Right.
Okay? So yeah, you're going to get some insight on tips and tricks and what you should have prepared, what better positions you for those.
Right.
Like the TA grant application that Dave just did. Okay, it's kind of like doing one of those grant apps for Parks and Wildlife. Okay, nobody gets it the first time. It's your orientation on the new suit. Okay?
Right.
But you'll learn those gotchas, and
Right.
a lot of these agencies get so many applications that, I mean, I've had submissions with TxDOT for our engineering stuff, okay? And people get eliminated because the font size is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's the way it is in the school business. If you don't dot your i's and cross your t's, you're out.
Yeah.
Right, but then if I already happen to be at a meeting where they talk about somebody's font size, and then you text Dave and says, oh, make sure you're using a Cambridge font 11.5.
But if I misspell font, please forgive me.
Then that might be, worth
It is. And
engaging.
some of the organizations will do seminars on, this is how you prepare our grant.
And that's also available through HGC?
I believe they've had some, but they don't get too in detail because otherwise they just get slammed with people wanting to know exactly how to win a grant. But there are people that will help you walk through the process. Kyle's got some great contacts between Texark. We started meeting with one of the contacts when I worked for the city of Tomball to get this 2920. And we were like, is it worth it? And they're like, yes, this is what we want you guys to do. And they're like, and that's what they're telling us now in regards to your projects, is yes, we want these improvements done. So I pulled up a presentation that the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program Subcommittee just did in October. It's on their website. It gives you the schedule for the next call for projects. These are transportation projects, obviously. They're working on their criteria right now. So by April, they plan on putting out what's called phase 1 pre-applications for the release for call. So they're going to a pre-application process to get you through it, and then usually they turn around and they help you get through the final application process. That's the new thing that's turned out lately with federal and state grants. You'd see it if you apply for hazard mitigation grants. They're starting to do pre-applications to see if the projects work, and then take you on to the next step to see if you can make it past. Because they want the pre-applications to be good and worth it before you do all this work.
So if they're going to bid it, then like go to the first step rather than the actual application.
Yeah.
Okay.
This call, they're breaking it up into essentially 2 calls. Okay, one, so your project's going to be ready, what is it, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, within 5
Short,
years.
mid, and long term. Doing the short and mid term in one call for projects. The long term needs a little bit more study and development funding as a second call.
Okay. So it seems like actually maybe Byron spending some time down there before April would be really worthwhile then to keep.
Yeah, if you want to listen to the subcommittees, get feedback on where they're moving, and you can, I believe they're all open, so you can go to any, you can go to the general board meeting.
So if I went to the general board meeting tomorrow, for example, I could just start introducing myself and maybe looking for some of these subcommittee meetings or sub-meetings.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And HGAC
That may
has
be where I fit.
presentations that they put out too for, one of the ones I went to a few years ago was traffic calming devices or the streetscaping, and it was bringing in new knowledge into design into it that people are now thinking about. So they have that information so you can bring it back to see if it fits for your community. Some of it will, some of it won't, so it's making those good decisions.
Does that match what you got?
So a few years ago, the city approached about expanding the north loop, making it 4 lanes. So we started at least those initial conversations to get on the tip through HJC, had meetings with TxDOT, and at that time, there just wasn't the data behind it to support. And now that we have a master plan, we have a lot more information to help support it. And then also, as they mentioned, the readiness of a project, because that one was, a $45 million project. Other players were involved. There wasn't an environmental study. All this wasn't ready. But now that we have a master plan and kind of smaller, manageable projects to get them more ready, I think to help that school problem.
It does. Some of that planning, and trust me, I don't like to recommend plans to sit on a shelf, okay? I'm so cheap, I don't want to spend somebody else's money. But some of that, if you've got it in place and you know what the target to put in there, you do better position yourself for some of this stuff.
And the city has competing plans for like the North Loop versus the 105, 149. Does that hurt it if you've got too much going on in one small town? I mean, it's not like we're Houston.
I would say no. I mean, you've got plans, okay, and it's thought through, it's been through a little bit of vetting. Okay, right now we're doing Precinct 2, Montgomery County Precinct 2 mobility study with HGAC and Charter Ride, which the south side of 105 falls in that.
Yeah.
Well, whatever falls in there, make sure you've got your 2 cents, okay? And then you get some partners through doing some of those So you tell Charlie, hey, we want to do this on 105, okay, it's right on the line. You get TxDOT informed and bonded on that. And then you've got the potential for something like we had happen in Tomball to say, okay, TxDOT will support this, that's our facility, you want to improve it, we'll partner on it, we'll be your sponsor. But TxDOT throws 200 jobs for a call for profits. Okay, so to them it's beneficial if it sponsors this little project. And so when they do select projects and line them up, it appears at least there's more of a distribution. Hey, the city of Montgomery got this. Yeah, it's a TxDOT facility, but everybody.
Right. And so if we tack on precinct 2 as well, then it'll seem even more distributed.
Yeah, if you tack on precinct 2 a little bit and do a little bit of coordination down there, okay, it just, like I said, it just better helps position you or with your commissioner, county commissioner. On the other side, I reached out to the Director of Transportation Planning and Development for Houston District this afternoon. He was in a meeting. But I'm going to try to get back with him and say, hey, what can we do at 105? What can we do on 149? Yeah, we want to talk to you roundabout. Yeah, we want to talk to your architect, your landscape architect. Okay, which is going to play into the next step of your implementation. If they've got standard papers, they've got standard aesthetic enhancements that you're good with on 149 or 105, you integrate that into your downtown plan if you like it, which makes it all cohesive. And at least on the state facility side, maybe you get somebody else.
Do we have specific needs that we've identified that we need help funding, or just more of a general thing? Because all these grants, they need some type of plan in place, something tangible with costs and stuff like that, typically.
That's really where the downtown master plan that's been approved, not just by this body now, city council also approved that at the recent city council meeting. So those give us specific target plans. We're talking, for instance, street work, drainage, water and sewer work all on McCown. Other areas, drainage throughout that area. You've got road improvements. You're going to have that.
Well, if you have if you're trying to do, for instance, drainage improvements, and you're trying to get grant funding for it, you usually need to show some type of analysis that shows the benefit and cost and all that kind of thing. That's not really provided in the downtown. You need another study. You need a wastewater study. You need a drainage study.
Those are things that are also identified in the downtown master plan as needs within there that I think that's where it's incumbent on, as appropriate, some items on the EDC to fund, some items on the city to fund. There's things that the EDC can fund, the city can't, and vice versa as well.
I'm just trying to think I'm drainage engineering, and that's what we do is we develop these master plans for communities so we can help identify their specific needs, prioritize them, and stick them to a specific grant or some type of funding opportunity. But that requires a lot of work of the study analysis and planning, and I don't know if we've really done that as a city. I don't know if we have a master wastewater plan, and maybe it would be beneficial for us to do that, to know our weak spots.
So we have, so in the past 5 years, we have a water master plan, a sewer master plan, a mobility plan, and there was a master drainage study done. This was before I got started in the city on Stewart Creek. So all those plans are in place now in the downtown plan. And so right now those are, at least the water and sewer, are going through an update. So we do have a lot of those plans kind of in place and projections and things like that to help support a lot of the projects. The one thing that, is of everything I would say that you listed, right, drainage, master planning is where we have the least in place as far as, individual developments are doing their own drainage plans, but from a large watershed perspective, downtown perspective, things of that is not.
Yeah, okay. And you're asking if it's your beauty contest, usually for drainage related stuff, the beauty contest is social vulnerability and low to moderate income. And so those are usually going to be focused on areas that are not able, that have low to moderate income. So I'm thinking particularly our efforts would be focused on the north end of the city. In our area though, we have so much topography that drainage isn't really as big of an issue as say down in Harris County. So we're probably going to be, and we're in a very kind of wealthy county as well. So I would be, we did get the GLO funding for that drainage project, so there is opportunities, but it'll probably be very narrowly focused to a specific part of the city.
Drainage downtown is just not to ruin what we already have going on, because
I just don't know if you'd ever get a grant project for drainage downtown, is
But
what I'm
again,
saying. I'm not,
the first idea was to do underground, and they were going to, take 3 months to do all the extra work, even though we don't have a drainage problem as is. I mean, obviously the open ditch isn't really, fabulous, but, we went through Tax Day, Memorial Day, Harvey without any water incursions downtown. So it's sort of a ridiculous amount of money to be spent over solving a problem that doesn't exist. So I think that, I don't want to skip anywhere, but, drainage at the high point of a hill is not the biggest concern that the city has.
Sure.
And that's something to keep in mind.
yeah. They made a good decision a long time ago to move the city to the south.
Yeah, definitely. The creek areas on the north side they're much more vulnerable now, but back then it probably still gave them cause for concern.
And I think you're exactly right. There will be some criteria for which we will not be able to, or be less likely able to qualify for grants. But that doesn't mean that there won't be some areas where we can qualify. There's a lot of cost to the elements that are outlined in the master plan for downtown redesign, and it's like, we don't have to get 100% of that paid by outside sources. Obviously, the more we can would be best. But the city and the EDC do have some resources. But I think in targeted areas where we can find those, we should be trying to find them.
Overall, given the point of item number 7, I think it makes sense if Byron's interested in learning more about HVAC and finding out, how we can better position ourselves to do well and work with the skill sets we already have externally and internally. I think that'd be great, Byron, and be good.
I would be willing to do that, but I would, in keeping with what was just said, get me focused. Tell me what the real needs are so that we're very efficient about these meetings.
Richard, would we need to make a motion for reimbursing him for any meetings and a per diem or something like that? Because that's obviously, I don't know where HJC meets, but
Timmons Road, it's about an hour drive.
I was going to say, leaving the city limits gives me high, so.
Roughly West University, Gallery area,
Okay.
to be more specific.
If you're on 610 like I was today, leave about 2 hours early.
I think it would be good to reimburse his expenses, because as a city councilman, his expenses for the city are automatically reimbursable, but I'm not sure that's as clear for an EDC director right now. So that'd be clear that he's doing that on behalf of the EDC. For expense-wise, while there's obviously collateral benefit, and Byron would be happy to have any discussions you need back and forth for some of those, and I'd also be happy to go to some of those in the future. My schedule tomorrow is booked for that period, so I can't do that one. But be happy to work with you about coordinating or even both going in some points in the future.
Okay.
Are you all comfortable with that?
Yeah.
reimbursement?
Yeah.
That's standard IRS rates that the city does.
the intent is really more to get to know people and be there. So I think we need to incentivize and support that, his effort to drive down there.
For sure.
So lunch as well?
Y'all just hit me on the hodgepodge. I go to hodgepodge lunch for lunch.
I'll feed you before you go. So should we make a motion then?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion that any expenses that are encumbered as a result of looking for or building relationships with the Houston area council for future grant opportunities be reimbursed to Byron Sanford.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we reimburse Mr. Sanford for expenses related to HGAC. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of reimbursing Mr. Sanford for expenses related to HGAC, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously. We will reimburse Mr. Sanford for expenses related to HGAC. Number 8, consideration of possible action regarding additional grant opportunities for future projects.
There's a lot of overlap with this from the last one. What I'm more discussing for the reason of this one is, other ways to pursue grant projects that are maybe less targeted from the entity than HGAC. The city uses a company called GrantWorks to assist in finding and sifting through a myriad of grants. They're a professional company that makes those applications on behalf of the city. And so we'll be working with them in terms of trying to outline what, from what we're looking for, what is possible out there, coordinating both with the city engineer as well as the consultants that have been brought on.
So what are we supposed to be doing for this particular action item? Are we supposed to be making a
In
motion?
terms of an action item from the board,
Yeah, it's not, it's just
it's really more of a discussion item to let you know. What's going to happen at some point is hopefully we'll be able to identify some. They'll be able to let you know they're going in. At some point, there's going to need funding from either the city and or the EDC.
Got it.
As I said before, there are some items that both of you can spend money on. There's some items the EDC can expend money on, the city can't. There's some items the city can spend money on, the EDC can't.
Got it.
And so there's...
You're just giving us a heads up that we're looking to have a grant. What do they call them? They go out and they find money for the city for their various projects?
Grant writers. Do you guys know of other ones besides GrantWorks?
GrantWorks is used a lot, there's public management, there's quite a few out there that are used.
Who wins the most?
They all do pretty well.
Do they?
They're considered administrators when it comes to a CDBG grant because you have to go out for them for an RFQ to be able to retain their services. If you're using them in general for information, they're doing a little research and giving it to you just depending on the grants.
Got it. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Anybody can get to help.
For the most part, their fees are paid for in the grant that they receive.
So the work they perform, they're not paid unless they're...
They don't get paid unless they win.
Pro bono.
That's fantastic.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
just curious because I asked Dave about
That's a great
GrantWorks 2
incentive.
or 3 weeks ago, and if we still don't have an answer from them, then that's,
Yeah. Well,
if they don't love us.
nothing wrong with that.
No.
Right.
Yeah, that's somebody who does.
One other item I wanted to point under here, it's not exactly a grant opportunity in terms of money, but I think it's worthy to consider. They provide advisory services as the Texas Main Street Program. That's through the Texas Historical Commission. I guess a simple synopsis of them. They help to develop an economic strategy for volunteer-supported downtown revitalization in the context of historic preservation. I was able to speak today with the assistant director with this program there, who she was just very excited by the fact that if Montgomery wants to consider that program, we already have a very distinct and strong historical identity.
Right.
In addition, they function about giving advice both towards economic revitalization and historic preservation.
Good.
So we already have a lot of things with regarding actions the city has taken with historic preservation as well as a strong identity. There's 90 cities currently in the state that are part of that program. The Texas Main Street Program is under a U.S. national program.
Wasn't Conroe recently in the news?
Yes, they were just accepted into that for the year starting January 1 of 22.
And we're already accepted?
No, we have not applied.
But we could become accepted,
We
right?
can apply. The next application period will end late August.
Okay.
I had spoken to at the end of July next year. I'd spoken to who was then the outgoing retiring director of this program in August of last year when I started looking into it, who advised me, that they're, at the end of the application period, they'll be making their determinations and then move forward with new cities.
What are the benefits, Richard, of having that designation?
Well, I guess one simple thing is, they provide ties to companies or whether they be employers or companies looking to locate in certain areas that meet certain designations, which they'll help advertise through their contacts as well as on a website that's dedicated to that. They'll help give advice in terms to the EDC with regards to that, if accepted, term economic revitalization, how to help lead through a volunteer-driven approach is what they look for. Some of their main points include economic vitality, design, organization applied to your own parent organization, for us, the EDC, as well as then reaching out into local volunteer groups to help expand out, how that work can be done, and promotion of the community.
So would this grant organization be part and parcel of helping us to achieve that designation, or at least to apply for it?
Oh, that would be something we would do independently.
Independently? Okay.
Yeah, the annual fee is around $600 a year to be part of that program.
Yeah.
So it's not terribly expensive.
I'll put my salary in. Because I think that would be a very good designation for us if we could drive economic development through that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of positives to it. There's a lot that I'm still learning about that.
Okay.
But I did want to put it on the table as, as a possibility. There's another group that I just learned about today in my conversation with the Historical Commission, and that's the Texas Downtown Association. I don't know much more about it than I looked at the website for about 45 seconds and had
Gotcha.
things to do, but it's another group to help in an advisory capacity for that. I think looking at several of these, finding ones that might be the best fit for us is a way to help get maybe not free advice, but low-cost advice, and maybe ways to tie in to, well, there's these other opportunities for grants out here, maybe
Right.
that we wouldn't otherwise notice
I
ourselves.
think it's awesome. That's definitely, to me, anything we can do to drive revenue in a way that we're not used to driving revenue is a good thing.
Yeah.
Especially when it's free revenue.
One of the requirements of the Main Street program is that the entity has a full-time staff person to carry out those mandates. Keeping in mind, we're talking about, well, if we do apply to that and get accepted, next year we're talking about something that begins January 1, 2023. So there's a lead-up
Well,
process.
Dan will still be on the board by then, hopefully. Okay, so is there any action on this item?
Nothing on there needs specific action for. As we look into these, we're going to go ahead and proceed with an application maybe for the Texas Main Street program or some others, or an actual grants. That information will come back to the board.
Sounds good.
So if everyone agrees, then we'll move on to item number 9. Consideration of possible action to convert the contracted event coordinator position to a full-time staff position and amend the annual budget to fund the position.
You're gonna-
A decent segue off of the last question or comment. Full-time employee.
I'm sure entirely coincident.
Yes.
Okay, the position of event coordinator was created in June 2021 as a contracted position. It was anticipating, around 20 to 25 hours of work per week. Since that time, the actual hours worked per week, has averaged closer to 44 hours per week. Primary reason for this difference, looks to be the increasing number of events that have been occurring in the local area beyond what had previously occurred. It was originally anticipated the contract position might need to become a full-time staff position. At this point, I'm really glad that was actually something I mentioned at that time, because there was some unknown. I just don't think that would happen quite so quickly. But there's obviously more work to be done than even I identified at the time. Duties for this position, as a full-time staff position, would include assisting with the development, design, coordination of the MEDC and city-initiated events, coordination with outside event planners and city staff for permitting and coordination with city departments, provide reports to the MEDC board of directors on events, and work with the city administrator on other MEDC business that would be as needed. It's likely this position would also evolve with the future needs of the MEDC and the city. In order to identify funding out of the budget, we would need a budget amendment to move, the way I see it, from the current budget, $12,000 from the consulting professional services. Those would be funds that would have otherwise, in the future, starting in February, for the rest of the fiscal year, gone to the contracted position. If you move that to a staff position, then it's not, then it's simply moving those same funds from one place to another for the same purpose. And also to move $40,000 in unallocated funds from events, so that would be a total of $52,000 that would move to the administrative transfers to the general fund. It's in that category that the city has in the past funded staff positions that were, the way it would be done is it would be a position that would be hired as a city employee but funded by the MEDC. As we evaluate how that work is actually, what work is actually done once we have it there, as I said, the position will likely evolve. Well, it's largely an MEDC-driven position. I'm sure we'll find that there are some things being done that is more beneficial to the city than the EDC. I know one of the big drivers there is it'll probably release some pressure off me, but with another staff position there. But I think we'll find also there's probably some of the expenses necessary for that position will be covered by the cities. So I guess the point I'm trying to make there at the end. Do you have any questions related to this?
I'm having trouble getting fully behind it. It has nothing to do with the staff member in question, highly capable, great job. Has nothing to do with the value of festivals in and of themselves. I think they're extremely valuable, but it does have to do with conversations that we've had before privately with respect to, I've had many years of experience in middle management, and you and I talked about once a middle manager asks for part-time and then senses the need, that means the manager needs help. So I fully get that. With that said, I've also said of my concern going into the budget process, particularly MEDC and also City Council as I served there, at some point, we've done a lot of things that are immeasurable, hard to quantify. We even talked about that. And I think I made the specific statement that people need to see some drainage issues, people need to see some sidewalks, people need to see, people need to walk, people need to say, we're doing something with taxpayer money. We're facing $10 to $15 million worth of infrastructure that people are viably concerned about. I don't think it's a secret at this point. The school district's going to hit the taxpayers. I think I can say that. So we're all trying to look at the timing of this, and I have to be concerned of this as a city council member as well, how we're using the taxpayers' money. We've alluded to some of the things that are the big needs. An ability to, and that's why I asked the question to the Gunda people as well, and we've had this discussion as well. How valuable is it to have someone who is really working, I guess I would say it in a lot broader sense than quote unquote event coordinator? I think we would have a very difficult time justifying a full-time position that was titled that, because everybody's going to say, as I've heard from constituents already, like the festivals, good deal, occasional things, a little bit of a pain in the rear to a business owner here and there. We'll tolerate it. We love them. We love the press that it brings. It's exciting times. It's wonderful stuff. It's not saying that. But we've got to be responsible to taxpayers in saying, and I've suffered this in management myself. Oh, they're just hiring another coach. They're just hiring this. They're just hiring. I just want to be responsible and make sure that the big fish to fry, which what do we hear over and over and over? How are we going to fund this? You got a water tower? How are you going to fund that? Lone Star, I'm concerned about that. Commercial development, do we have any right-of-ways going there? I mean, we've got some bigger economic pieces there that I'm concerned about. And that's why I came to your office before, getting, what do you envision? And you told me this may happen, and I've just thought about it, and I've gotten some input from taxpayers. and I don't have a good feeling with it. I just don't.
Well, what if you redefine the duties of this person and broaden her duties, his duties? This person could be an active person with, if she worked for MEDC, we could also instruct her to really go after companies to look at coming here. So we could change the structure of her duties to incorporate that salary, I think.
More
So-
marketing type.
Marketing,
Well, and those get into some of the areas where, and maybe I didn't put enough information in that, but where I talked about other MEDC business as needed. I do see opportunities where, one of the things that's been done here, by this person in this position, is building a database of email addresses for all the downtown businesses to facilitate broader and greater communication that is had there. That's not maybe specifically needed for events. We do need that for events so we can say, get that message out to everyone better than it had been before. These events are coming, and so put them on better notice. But in the course of doing that, we now have a stronger communication line to be able to reach them for other purposes.
Well, I'm all in favor of paying people what they deserve, no question about it, you have to. This position right now, based on what I could tell, is about $1,500 a month right now, is what it is? Okay, so that's $13.84 an hour. And if you multiply that times 44 hours, and then you multiply that times 52 weeks, that's about 28K, 28.8, not 52. I think it's a far stretch to think, to triple someone's salary overnight for the same work seems a little bit excessive to me. I'm all in favor of paying whomever is in that position a fair wage, but we set the rate and then you can't triple it just because. So unless there's going to be a different job description that's going to require that, then I agree with Byron. I think we need to be fiduciarily responsible and either develop a better job description. I don't even know what the job description is, but if MEDC is going to be responsible for it, then we certainly want to know what we're paying for it, right? That's the right thing to do. I don't hire people and not give them a job description.
Well, the intent of that position wasn't to pay them $1,500 for 44 hours of work.
No, of course not.
It was for 25 hours of work.
Even at 25, yeah, it's still, if you throw 44 at that rate, you could, even if it's $14 or $15 an hour, you have to, you can't triple it for the same work, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I just think.
You as an employer know there's more to salary than just the state salary.
Yeah, there is. That's true. Is this a 1099 or is this an actual?
It's currently a 1099. It was slated in my presentation to be a staff position.
Which gives them what benefits besides? Like health insurance?
Retirement.
Can we keep it as a contract employee and just up the hours rather than doing a full staff with benefits?
That certainly becomes a potential where
I have reservation of having a full-time party planner is what it kind of would come across out in the public, and we have to consult our engineer, but we have an on-staff party planner. Seems backwards.
I think that's kind of denigrating what's going on, because I think it's more, if you look at what she's actually doing, is a business liaison, and it is an event coordinator, but also she's an interdepartmental coordinator.
Well,
She's taken a lot of work off of the police department's shoulders and a lot of Richard's shoulders too, and doing basically.
Well, let the city pay for 50% of it then, or
It
whatever.
also sounds like we need to have a clearly stated job description that really tells us what we're paying for. These are the responsibilities and
I'm
duties of
thinking
this
some
person.
billable hours will be sitting
But,
there.
as well, if you look at, we were talking earlier about not getting any more bodies that come to work and are willing to stay at work. If you're paying less than $30,000 a year, are you going to get somebody who speaks properly, writes business letters that you can send out without oversight, that you can let loose on the city without worrying about what they're going to say, what they're professional to represent the city. It's
It's
just a
just a
thought
few-
for, both Amy and I have been working for significantly less than what we're actually qualified to work for. And part of that's because we care about the city and we're actually, I don't want to say a patriot because that might be a little bit over the top, but, if I was actually working at the wage that the job duties qualify me for, I would be charging significantly more, and so would Amy. So.
I don't
that's
disagree.
It's not the current job, it's what we're willing to work for because we care about the city.
But we all are volunteering to some degree, okay?
And again, I'm volunteering to be here. This is not part of my job.
And before it was pitched to the EDC that this is a way to help relieve the labor from the staff of the city, help them focus on their responsibilities. And so this is more of a relief, a way of providing relief to them and having someone, help facilitate these events on the end. Now this is like a full-time position now we need someone who fills all these other things, and it just seems like it's a bit much. From a few months ago, we didn't have anyone in this role.
And I think that part of it is that Amy has taken what was, like vague, like, hey, I want to have a pet parade, and we should have it in November. And then we did have a pet parade this weekend. Like, hey, we need to have Charlie Diggs come here in the fall. And then we had the biggest event that we've ever had. And of course, there were some growing pains, but, we're going to work that out for next time. And part of that is having competent, continuous staff to make that happen. And again, work with the city, work with the private.
I don't disagree. It's the optics of this.
I think it's just happening too quickly too.
Yeah.
I think before, this whole having events all the time now is still kind of up in the air whether the city really wants to do this or not.
Well, there's a lot of things that are happening too quickly to us right now, and that is, people want to be coming to town. There are events coming here that are not just more than we had during the pandemic, more than we had pre-pandemic. They're not all city put on events. Some of them are coming to resorts.
Yeah, I think
like what Charlie Diggs brought. So
Right.
those all bring money to town with merchandise tax rates.
Listen, I love Amy. I'm a huge Amy supporter. I love her.
This is not about Amy.
All right, but I want to say this. I believe from an optics standpoint, we need a job description as far as holding someone accountable to whatever it is that we're paying them for. And that's everybody. That's me, you, everybody needs to have some sort of a description so that, for one, they know what the expectations are. And I don't disagree with you either. I think that, people should definitely get a fair wage for whatever work they're doing, especially when it's important work. They should be rewarded because you want good people in those positions, no question about it. But maybe we should look at getting an interim, let's pay what the hours are being used, and then let's define the position and maybe go from there. It's a sort of a hybrid way of connecting the dots here.
Well, in my discussion, I had 4 lines of text that had to do with what would fall within job duties. So what more are you looking for beyond this?
Well, it's pretty vague. Let's put it that way.
Job descriptions have a lot of vagueness to them.
Yeah.
My own job description is a series of bullet points.
Yeah, same with everybody else I hire. They know what they're going in for.
One of the most all-encompassing is other duties as assigned and necessary.
Well, we all know we do things over and above what maybe our bullet points are. Okay, I know that. But to triple someone's salary for doing the same job seems a little bit excessive.
It's not tripling the salary where, it's like, one, look at setting a fair salary for what's put there. What you're doing, you're extrapolating numbers, $1,500 a month for what's intended for 20, maybe 25 hours worth of work for someone who's working, twice that.
Yeah, well, and if you run the hours on that, it's about $14 an hour, and if you give them 44 hours, that's 20 hours more. It doesn't equate to $52K.
That's not a $14 an hour skill set either. We've been very
That's what we're
fortunate.
paying.
I understand, but that's what we're paying now.
Yeah, And I've been very fortunate that person hasn't walked away too.
I don't disagree. I mean, all the things you said about having competent people, but when we hired someone on and you accepted the position at that price, that's what you agreed to.
Yeah.
I mean, I have people start with me all the time at $7.25 an hour, and in a month I've already brought them up to 10 because they're fantastic. But, and I don't disagree that Amy should be compensated fairly, but it seems like without having a clear direction, and a real clear understanding of what that direction is going to be, and why, I still don't understand why MEDC is fully responsible for that. Why wouldn't the city be responsible for some of that to begin with? I'm just asking the question. I don't know what the answer is.
But the factors also with the benefits and insurance and all these things, that it's above and beyond the dollar amount that you're presenting, though, I mean, the cost.
The transfer would be the transfer, because the MEDC is not an administrative body, so we only pay what was agreed to and whatever we put into the transfer. So that would be our all-in cost.
And then any expenses above that, if any are necessary, those come out of the city.
Yeah, I would just see, to me, it would seem very hard to find out what the billable hours were. I mean, all EDC, or there's a little bit for the city here, that type of deal.
Where do you see the crossover, I mean, with respect to city business versus MEDC? Or do you see any crossover, or is it just going to be one or the other?
I guess I don't entirely understand the question, but I'll be trying to answer.
Well, I'm saying with respect to the event coordinator position and how it applies to MEDC business as opposed to city council business or city business. Do you see I know there's going to be crossover, but do you see there any clear distinction between what may be required to relieve youth, so to speak, for whatever?
Well, what this has resulted in, to date, is a lot less need for me to be involved in these events that we've seen, whether they be Charlie Digs, whether they be the pet parade, whether they be Halloween, to name some of the ones that we've had recently. When they cross my desk, they're coming across as completed applications. I get updates on what's going on at least a weekly basis, if not more often. What conversations are being had between who's putting on this event, what facilities they might need from the city, where the coordination is with the police department on security, where the coordination is on the city secretary's office with permitting, where the coordination is with public works, with setting out barricades for roads, pulling up the barricades, cleaning up the trash, making other coordination. Those were all things that fell on my plate. And things that it's like, as I've gone through this time, I've been able to concentrate my time on doing what I'll say the higher duties for the city.
Yeah.
Which is what I was really hired for by the city. The EDC is, not to denigrate the EDC in any way, it working as a city administrator with the EDC is more of an add-on to the city administrator.
I agree.
A city like Oak Ridge North, which operates on, about 70% of the tax base that Montgomery has, they have a full-time paid position for the EDC that's someone who's an economic professional, which is far above what I was asking for here. That falls 0% on the city administrator there.
Yeah.
And Montgomery operates at the tax base much higher than the city of Oak Ridge North. The EDC there does, as best I can observe.
So are you advocating for this? I don't understand. Are you advocating for this? Are you just, as far as I know, there aren't many things we don't all agree on. It's been pretty good. And I don't think it's a disagreement as much as it is just maybe a realignment of the way we're thinking about this. I don't want to put you in a position where you feel like you're overwhelmed at all. And I don't think I can sense that you feel like you are in some respects, and so having someone help you is a good thing.
If he's overwhelmed because of events and we don't want to fully fund an event coordinator like this, maybe we need to reevaluate how many events do we want to put on? That's the kind of bigger question. Is the event a priority? Are these events a priority for us?
Well, some of them I think are just a waste of time, and and some of them are amazing.
So I think 100% engineer mind, and I don't. And for me, it's hard for me to see where the return on investment is quantifying those returns on investment. And so I see something like this, whenever I hire someone or, whenever I'm hired out, I have to demonstrate that I'm providing, this return on investment to this client.
I think I can address.
And some of these events, I have no clue if it's really benefiting the city, whereas maybe the Charlie Diggs event kind of does have some type of quantitative measure of benefit. I would prefer that, where we can say, okay, we need an events coordinator that costs this much because that will coordinate these number of events and they'll bring in this number of ticket sales revenue, or we think it will drive this much in sales tax revenue for each event. That's how I think, and that's kind of what I need in order to support a fully funded staff position for this, especially with, a small city like this, having an event coordinator just seems a little bit, at first blush, kind of ridiculous.
Maybe more of an administrative assistant position.
He has one of those.
Oh,
He's got a beard.
Susan?
No.
David Gold.
This is the city
yeah.
administrator, but not administrator.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, to answer a bit to the point you made there, it's like the Charlie Diggs Festival in March. One of the business owners I spoke with following that at Taco, they had, in conjunction with that event, their best day that they had ever had. Now, that was an event that was out of the city
We
center.
did half the sales
Yeah.
that day.
Well, that was an event, as I say, out of the city
Yeah.
center, but an event that benefited the business towards that area.
Right.
When Sip and Stroll goes on Thursdays, the reason that HMBA had continued to put on Sip and Stroll is that some of the businesses right there in that area, they do their best day of business the day of Sip and Stroll.
It's our worst day. I'm just giving it to you straight. And not to mention the fact that they take up all of our parking too. So there's lots of good and bad, and I understand that, being on the EDC, I'm willing to take one for the team, step into the pitch, but all these events don't necessarily translate to every single business, and that's all I'm
It
saying.
doesn't take up all your parking, because you can park on the street or in the Jacobs parking lot at almost any.
Well, let's take the Halloween event, for
Okay,
example.
I'll give you that one, but we're.
You were there, you saw it firsthand, and we weren't even open, and the parking lot was full.
Yeah,
And this is showing us that all these events, the pep parade, that was a certain budget amount, which we were kind of on the fence on some of these.
Yeah.
Well, these are all going, up because we're having to pay someone. The cost of managing these events have gone up, it seems like, because we need someone full-time to staff them and organize it. And it's making me reevaluate, are some of these events maybe not worth the dollar amount associated with it?
Right,
Now,
except for those are the quality of life ones, because I didn't bring my family to Charlie Diggs, but I did to the pep parade, so,
and that's hard for me to quantify, family or,
Well, so I'm just saying that not everything that we do has the positive ROI in an absolutely quantifiable way, but what we do has the ability to tell people, this is a family-friendly town, this is where I want to, bring my children, and so there's demand for housing, which drives up real estate prices, which, that doesn't help us that much, but, that's higher property tax revenues for the city, more houses will be built, which drives the quantity of homes, which means more families shopping all over town, which means more sales tax. So it's really not a one-on-one, but overall, high quality of life equals.
Can we approach it differently then? Can we have a coordination line item on these events that we can estimate, okay, it's gonna take this person's number of hours to manage this event. That way, on each event, we can, determine whether the quality of life improvement from that event is worth it or not.
I have a feeling that is the kind of government BS that it costs more than it's actually worth. But
I just think it's a little excessive, but I
I mean,
love
you
it.
have a good point, because we agreed to a certain amount here, and now we're basically tripling. And I have not been able to really think it through and see whether, I thought this stuff was already being taken care of under the current rate that we're paying this staffing.
Yeah, but they saying there's more hours, but
But
what
more
should,
hours at the same rate would
Yeah.
not come out to be the number that we're presented here.
but what should be established is going to be, like I said, redefine the position and start out at,
defining the position, but it's already,
yeah.
the stuff that's defined here was what we already understood to be the duties of that person before.
Oh, no,
think it's-
you say no duties haven't changed.
Well, what I have here in the discussion goes beyond what it was before. Before it was, helping with event planning and coordinating that with the city with regards to permitting and cleanup and security, and that's included. This starts to this goes beyond that and goes deeper than that.
Well, it should have started out at that salary, create a position with an interim salary based on merit to get to a certain point.
Agreed. That's the way we do it.
Yeah.
90 days and reevaluate, and it's been more than that, and I know Amy has done a fantastic job. I don't know, I can't quantify exactly what y'all probably know better than anybody what's been done, but maybe we need to look at, seriously defining the role a little bit and looking for some ways to quantify the results. I don't disagree with Ryan. We do it all the time. You put in so many hours and we're getting so much production. That's the way it works in life. You don't just triple someone's salary based on their wants, needs, or... I think it's excessive. I'm just telling you what I think. That's what we're here for, right? If as a business owner, I would never triple someone's salary. I would just not do that.
Yeah, and you say tripling the salary as if that was where it started from, which it started for, like I said, 20, maybe 25 hours a week. Someone's doing twice that, and yes.
Well, so
maybe
even
the fault is that they've done that extra work,
Right.
and gone the extra mile, because now you expect them to go the extra mile.
Yeah, so it's-
1,500 instead of getting
right. So
twice as much for
so
twice as much work.
1,500 times 12. Okay, so it's 18. So it's a $36,000 position if you doubled the hours. It's not a $52,000 position. That's all I'm saying. It just seems. And it's nothing personal against the person.
I think it's really a question of, do we really want to have all these events? Because this is what's going to cost us to do that. I think that's part of the question, too, on the other end. There is concern of why these are the duties that I had in my mind whenever we agreed to hire this person on before, have this position on before, was these were the duties that were implied before, so what's changed other than the number of hours worked? And that gets what you're saying too, but there's two things. Are events such a high priority that we need a full staff position to help manage them? And then two, do we think that the responsibilities defined here are worth that? And maybe we need to do a little bit more research on what, this person would get paid in the private field. And I don't know these things.
I think Dan knows. Didn't you say your daughter works in Dallas for a men's company?
Well, she owns a company.
Not a good comparable.
I was saying, you don't have to. We should be.
I'll be paying more.
We have two event coordinators, and but they also, one of them also runs her own company, so she makes, probably $60,000-$70,000 a year. But the other one is who works under us and works events. And I'm talking 30, 40 events a year, not 12, is substantially less than that. So I see where you're going. I just don't know I think if we had a better job description, it'd be easier to make a decision.
Maybe it's a job description with comparables of what would a comparable type of position make in a private party
I think we also need
or
to add
event coordinator, because there's event coordinators in the private sphere too.
Right.
So
I think we also need to add in the Main Street coordinator, because if that's something that you're serious about, then we need a full-time person for that. And I think it's pretty clear that we don't need two full-time people, so it would make sense to include this position as the Main Street coordinator as
what's the
well.
main?
And I think, Richard, that is the main thing that I'm trying to say, is that we can justify having a full-time position, and you said this between now and July. So if we had an interim, which just continue the interim, but if we want to recommend for a greater number of hours times what we're doing, maybe we might be inclined to do that for now. But in the interim, we need to get to where we can see, and I would recommend that the title not be event coordinator, be like Grand Poobah or whatever we're going to make it, but it's broader, because we have to have more tangibles, is what we're saying, to
That's it.
justify what we're doing
Yeah, I
for the
agree.
taxpayers in a very critical next year to 18 months, is what I see.
Business liaison?
Something ambassador for the city, I don't know what it is, but it needs to be broader than that, because we're going
Right.
to get bombarded with it, like Ryan is saying, do we need this many festivals? And I'm completely sold on that, but I just know it's something that's not measurable, and if you can't justify with a lot of immeasurable things, then you're going to get a lot of pushback on
And
it.
I think some of the costs could be spread out too. I mean, I think the cities should
The city
participate
may
in some of
consider
this.
it. See, the city may consider it if there's a whole lot of benefit for these grants that evidently we're not getting for 2 sidewalks that we wanted, for example, or a right-hand turn lane that's sitting in limbo, and other things that y'all discussed since I've been here that are going, how many years has this taken? 5, 6 years? You know, we've got to have some movement in these major areas. And then they'll be more willing to accept these, what they're calling minor areas, which I'm saying, I'm agreeing totally with Becky's assessment on things. And I'm totally sold on the person that we're talking about and their abilities, and I think that's what I'm hearing consistently.
Well, what I feel like I'm hearing from it, let's say at least 3 and probably more like at least 4 of you, is you're not against this so much as wanting something that's much more fully fleshed out and more targeted.
Yes.
And I think it's clear that we need to pay for work being done. Because
Yes.
I agree.
That was
Yeah,
the
we're not-
next thing is, since there's 40 plus hours worth of work being done on some of
Well,
these.
just pay them for what they're doing now at the current rate, and let's develop a true business, minded description of their duties so that they can be directed. I mean, people want to know what their responsibilities are, and you have to have something to measure it by. That's the only fiduciarily responsible thing to
And we
do.
have a person in mind when we're looking at this, but 5 years from now, we'll have this position open that may not be filled by, by some other person. We want to be able to have a very clear description of what their duties are and what they're, what they're responsible
Can
for.
we go whole hog and go economic development director?
See, that has a lot
Well,
more.
that has to have a job description that kind of mirrors that title too. And, the reason why I say party planner is because that was the first thing that, popped in my mind. That's what other people are going to think in their mind too. We're paying for a party planner. And I know there's more
You
to
and
it.
Amy get together and decide what the responsibilities are and help us develop an understanding. I mean, nobody's against paying people with their work, but we need to understand what it is that we're paying for, okay? It's not a slap against anybody or any amount of work they're doing. I've talked to Amy before. I know she works like a yeoman to get these events off, and it's a lot more than she bargained for. Let's figure out what exactly it is she's doing so everybody can be sold, and the city and our constituents can be sold as well.
Because it's probably a lot more than just party planning. That's what
Lot
I'm
more
trying
than
to
party
say
planning,
is,
Stop
but
using
it,
that word because it's driving me nuts.
I know, but that's what's going to be received as, is we're paying this much money for, that's how we're going to proceed.
Just define it and let's
If
move
we have a
past
clear
it.
description, we can say, this is not just, putting together balloons and stuff. These are all
We've
that's,
already had safer events and following the ordinances that are on the books, which are meant to ensure that our guests who come here are following the rules, which are there mostly for a reason, so.
We're not disagreeing, we're just asking for clarification.
Right. I'm just saying that's a really important aspect of the city, because getting people's trust in our own reputation is incredibly important, because if anything goes wrong, our reputation could be damaged, and that's an incredibly risky thing to take on, so.
Okay, let's make a motion.
So, make a, go ahead.
No, go
Well,
ahead.
let me just piggyback one thing on what the board president just said, because many times the chief of police and I have had discussions on, it's like, there's going to be a high-profile event in Houston area, Southeast Texas, that will, something will go wrong, and there's just no way to prevent that when you bring people together. And it's like, and we knew part of our job was to make sure, everything we could, it wouldn't be Montgomery that happens. You don't want it to happen anywhere, but at some point it's going to happen somewhere. The Astroworld Festival is a good example of, it just takes one trigger when you have lots of people there, for something to go wrong.
You're only as good as your last event.
Yeah.
I understand. I mean, we do it all the time, but we just want definition.
And I got that, and so I can make sure to bring that back for the next meeting. But what I would like to ask, then in the interim, since this person is working twice the hours that were anticipated, can I get the support of the EDC board to move the contracted rate from 1,500 to 3,000 to at least compensate what was expected when the position was offered under contract, for the period of, November, December, January, as a bridge.
Through the end of the year, or through the end of
Through the end of
January,
January.
because we won't be there. We won't be able to make a decision.
Yeah, which will then allow me to,
So you want to amend this to say that we will double the contracted rate through the end of January 2022
yes.
as an interim until we can come back with a fully vetted job description and determine a full
Right,
salary
I
rate.
reduced the rate from 1,500 a month to 3,000 a month, and the reason for that is because twice the hours are being worked.
Yeah,
Is that a motion that you just made?
yes.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we amend the contracted event coordinator rate to $3,000 a month for November, December, and January. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion? All those in favor of amending the contracted event coordinator rate to $3,000 a month for November, December, and January, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will amend the contracted event coordinator rate to $3,000 a month for November, December, and January. Just so y'all know, you can't actually afford me at the rate that I'm worth. Item number 10, consideration of possible action regarding collaboration with the city on the proposed Tucker Drive sidewalk construction.
The city has budgeted money in the current fiscal year for the construction of a sidewalk along Klepper Drive. It'll run from the intersection of Curtis Street through the intersection of Bessie Price Owens Drive, which you can see on the map that's provided. The project was submitted for grant funding through TxDOT's biannual Transportation Alternatives Program, and it was not awarded funding. Construction of the sidewalk has potential benefits for both the city and the MEDC, providing a valuable pedestrian link between historic downtown and Fernland Historical Park, as well as the city's open space property on the east side of the MISD Administrative Building. That area, as well as the parking lot on the west side of that building, is often used for event parking in the downtown and other areas nearby. The sidewalk project was also identified in the downtown master plan as a key component of the city's connections to the downtown area. The city engineers provided a map exhibit outlining the extent of the sidewalk project, and we'll be at the meeting to discuss further.
Was the reason were we given a reason why it wasn't funded? Was it a ranking or?
Well, we have not yet been given a reason. We do have a follow-up telephone conference scheduled, but I think that's not until the end of November. So it's going to be a couple of weeks before we get a specific reason. One of the things that staff finds confusing is that it seems that some of the entities that were awarded grants looks to us like they fall for reasons or fall for items that seem to fall outside of what requirements were to submit. So we're a bit confused as to how TxDOT awarded some of them. I'm sure TxDOT has a good reason, and hopefully we'll be able to find that and follow up. But we were not provided the funding for it. The city has set aside enough funds to fully pay for portions of it. Where their sidewalk ended in the city's plan at Bessie Price Owens, we're looking to extend this farther. So we believe there's room for MEDC participation. In addition to the cities, to help fund the difference there.
The next opportunity for funding would be 2 years, is that right?
Yes, there's two different 2-year programs. This one, which is every 2 years, is the transportation alternatives. every other year opposing that is the Safe Route program. We do intend to submit, there was one other sidewalk project that was submitted for this by the city that was turned down also. That essentially goes from a similar area northwest of the community center, out past MLK to past left of MLK to the school. And so that will be for the Safe Routes to School program. And so we intend to resubmit that one next year.
Is any of this going to be impacted by any of the under the work we're going to be doing on the roads as far as the drainage and the pipes in the future?
We'll still be on with the sidewalk that we're talking about here. This sidewalk would not interfere with that.
Okay, so it's not going
There's no utilities under,
So one of the things that have changed since the grant was submitted is now that you have a master plan and kind of the long-term potential goals of curving your street and potentially more of a wider 6-or 8-foot sidewalk on one side and a normal 5-foot sidewalk on the other. What we did is we proposed to add the scope to put in some inlets and have a swell between the edge of the road and the sidewalk to be able to pick up that flow because there's storms here on the south side of Clubman Drive. To get that in now versus when this was submitted was to essentially have it at grade and then adjust the grade of the sidewalk so if the road is lowered in the future, becomes kind of a gutter, that sidewalk's in place. So to answer your other question, there is an existing water line underneath on this side of the street that, there's a potential always there that something can go wrong with it, but, it's plan to just go over the top at this point. Also, the idea is not shown in this exhibit, but was to look at getting an easement outside the right-of-way to provide some additional go around the parking lot that's there instead of trying to cross behind those cars that's closer to Prairie Street, et cetera, to give some spacing.
there's no plan to upsize that water line or replace it or anything that you know of?
There isn't, so it's not, again, that's one of the lines that doesn't have great historical records on as far as the exact age. It's a 6-inch line today that connects, there's now a 12-inch on 149, 12-inch on Klepper, and it becomes an 8 kind of right at Bessie Owens. So if it does get replaced in the future, if we get replaced with an 8 to upsize it, likely what we would do on that is just pipe burst it, go up from 6 to 8. You might have some heating that would affect the sidewalk, but what we would propose is before this started was check the depth for that line and see exactly what we're doing.
Christian, I thought we talked about maybe doing Klepper at the same time that we did the sidewalk. Is that not feasible?
We wanted to look at that more from a staff point of view, but also we can bring that back with this because we're not looking for this tonight to be a motion to proceed. We're looking for this to be a motion that if the MEDC board is willing to say, yes, we'll participate in that, to let us work with the engineers to bring something back that will be what you actually need to put to support. So that gives us some time to look at all those details, as well as potentially crosswalks in here while we work the road. I mean, this past weekend I walked on that road, so I got to get a better look at that.
I think it's only really bad at that block of Prairie and,
Right about 150 feet there.
yeah. it's not-
Do you have an idea of what type of funding you may need from us?
Depending on issues we could identify with the road, I'm thinking somewhere between probably, if it's sidewalk only, 35 to 50,000. If there's some road issues that, depending on what those are, those costs that will go up. But these, I guess, these are items that we were identified in the master plan. They're items that are, the EDC board has already said, well, we're looking to move these forward. So this is going to be the first incarnation of trying to move some of this forward.
When you said we were going to do the Klepper Street, you mean improving it entirely, like with inlets and curb and gutter, all that type of stuff?
Resurfacing, including possibly taking it down. Because there's some definite uneven areas there.
That also includes like everything that's included in the downtown plan for Klepper, like putting in curb and, roadside ditch and putting that in.
That's the discussion between this meeting and the next meeting staff needs to have with the engineers and how big this scope would be. If, it may be just sidewalk and road and leaving the space in between those elements for the drainage to go back in. Part of that is, how much do we want to bite off at one time? How much is the right bite, and how much is too big a bite to take for the first?
I think the other thing that would be helpful tonight is kind of looking at the scope of where the sidewalk zone in red is that match kind of what is a first look at where we want to put it. You know, the reason, I'll tell you that the yellow future potential that goes to 149 is in yellow is future potential multifold. Is one is there's a parking lot there, so you'd be either inside the wall. Touching the wall is scary just because we had to deal with it once with the historic nature of it and trying to convince the historic commission you want to punch through it. And also 149 doesn't have any facilities on it right now. So getting close and getting kind of to that corner of the community center makes sense. But that's why that's in yellow, and then it stops at Fernland, because right now that's the, you know, if you keep on going, okay, maybe we take it to past the mini golf or take it all the way to C.P. Stewart to connect kind of that future commercial development down.
So to some extent, the yellow line especially, you know, we'll have decisions to make on options regarding community center itself. So this type of thing, will it sway option 1 versus option 2? I mean, or is it not even a consideration? What we do there doesn't have anything to do with what we do with community center lot, right? Okay, because I don't want to fridge on that like we've been talking about, do this and then change that.
Well,
Yeah, so what we talked about last time is that might even be on the other side of the road. So
Okay.
there's lots of.
yeah, I mean, what we need to do is, move forward with planning on it. What we don't want to do is engage the engineer for several $1,000s worth of work and find out, well,
Right.
EDC doesn't want to do the sidewalks. Then we've misspent the public's money.
Or your statement
I
says
want to
it
do the
all.
sidewalk, so.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you get the point I'm making with that, right?
Right.
And the one other thing about, trying to get these all addressed time-wise is, if we are going to do the sidewalks, I think, I know I heard the comment, I think it was your comment
Yes.
was, public wants to see some of these things happen.
Right.
I don't want to hold up project A because project B needs a little more time if we can safely move forward with project A. I don't want any of them to suffer and not get done.
Right.
But I think we all want to see something breaking ground and moving forward if it can.
And as your statement says in the paragraph, this is a key to connecting downtown and that sort of thing. So I make the motion that we collaborate with the city on the proposed Klepper Drive sidewalk project and refine details to bring back to the board of directors for consideration and approval.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we collaborate with the city on the proposed Klepper Drive sidewalk construction. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? I'd like to be clear that we want to not stop at Bessie Grace Owens, which was part of the grant project, but move all the way to cross at Fernland. Is that the general board consensus? I mean, because that's my opinion, to be clear in my opinion.
I think Fernland is a very critical part of what we're doing, so I would say yes.
From a staff point of view, we intend to bring something back at a minimum, I guess, Fernland, 149. We can then discuss whether EDC would rather not, or whether to do that on more.
I was going to say, 149 is less important because I don't know that as many people walk through that portion. But also, I'd like to point out that that's our first minor intersection. According to the plan, the downtown design plan is at Prairie and Klepper. So I don't know if we come up with any design ideas, or that would be part of that's kind of the fluff on top of our rebar cake.
And I can tell you from a staff point of view, we're certainly hoping so.
So I'd like to do some fluff as well. I mean, not very fluffy, but we need some of it.
Right down fluff.
Yes, Brian, please, and Aaron. Any further discussion on this item? Those in favor of collaborating with the city on the proposed Klepper Drive sidewalk construction, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will collaborate with the city on the proposed Klepper Drive sidewalk project. All right, item number 11, city engineer's report.
Good. We got the copy of the city engineer's report in there, and
We have to put that city engineer report right here.
Chris, I think you specifically like to highlight.
Just hit the highlights, yeah. Yeah, we've already read it.
So downtown water line replacement, so the project that's been going on, that is complete. Contractors finished adjusting punch list items, minus some minor things. So we'll be doing a final punch list inspection here in the next few weeks. The other big ongoing construction improvement project is the water plant 3 improvements. That's again another $1 million project. It includes adding another hydrodynamic tank, adding another cooling tower, and replacing a ground storage tank at water plant 3. So if you drive by there, you're missing a tank because it has been demolished. So that is underway. The new tank should be back online by March. So that way you're back up to full storage capacity, or actually you took down a 100,000 gallon tank and put it up a 210,000 gallon tank. So you'll be back up and larger by the time it gets warm. The GLO projects are listed. So there's 3 that you mentioned earlier that came out of the GLO grant. Andrews Branch Range Improvement, which is right there at 149 at MLK. A sanitary sewer rehabilitation and ditch and culvert project along MLK on the north side of the street, as well as McGinnis Drive in Baja Road, and then a new generator at Water Plant 3. So right now you'll have a generator that powers one well and a few of the Bishop pumps and controls, and this is the second generator. So that plant actually has 2 electrical services, so there'll be one generator in each service, just based on how that plant was designed. The next few items, the speed study and the traffic signal warrant analysis from TxDOT. No, the big one there is TxDOT has agreed, or they have stated they're moving the signal to their design group, or to a consultant to begin design on the signal. And then what happened at the last council meeting last week was they presented the 105 in Buffalo Springs traffic signal warrant analysis, and we're giving the director to go ahead and submit that to TxDOT because that was warranted as well. Not today, but based on a 2023 future condition, because the main drivers of that is on the corner, the northeast corner discount tire is going to be building, and they're going to be connecting the driveway through. So now you can get from Buffalo Springs to Kroger without getting on the 105.
Yeah.
And then obviously under construction behind Panda Express, that drive is getting punched through to Buffalo Springs, and it's, I think, just curing at this point. So now you have multiple ways that people get on Buffalo Springs versus you did before. So you put those 2 in, and then the Top 3 crossing development and all those added up to make it a warranted signal. 2 new feasibility studies that were presented back in October was for Hills of Time Creek Section 5, which was 70 or so lots, and then Porter Farms, which is another 90 lot development. Hills of Time Creek Section 5, obviously next to Hills of Time Creek, and then Porter Farms is north of 1097 on 149 at that intersection. The other, all the rest are relatively normal items. Concrete Crossing Section 1, council accepted, or conditionally accepted, the water and sewer infrastructure, so they can start beginning taps for all those homes in that section. And we're having a final inspection of the roads on Wednesday of this week to get that addressed. Last items on there, the Redbird Meadows development. So that developer, so this is what's also called a camera tract. So it's a 500 acre, 490 acre tract. Old Players World, Womack Cemetery, it's 556 homes. They are moving forward with the development agreement with the city, and also any other phasing plan for those. And those houses range from quarter acre to half acre lots. I think the average home resale price was in the $450,000.
The camera?
Kramer, yeah.
Sanitary sewer cleaning and televising, that bid package is underway. So we'll be getting bids for that after the holidays, just because prices are hard to get this time of year. That will clean, televise, and inspect, and then put together recommendations for repair of all the sewer lines downtown, as well as the main trunk lines that go to the old lift station, or excuse me, old sewer plant.
Did you read the Wall Street Journal article this weekend on artificial intelligence and sewer televising?
Yes, I did not read that article, but I had looked into that before. It's pretty cool. So then it'll pre-code it and put it into a software and rank it for you. So,
Supposedly humans are 20% inaccurate. That sucks.
and then the last items I had, the turn Atkins Creek and 1097 improvements, those are text dot project. It's waiting for funding. And then the 149 and 105 turn lane, according to them, Entergy should have the power poles relocated this month. And then once they're relocated, they can proceed with putting in the turn lane.
Yay!
So,
Yeah,
they were out.
progress this week.
The signs are up.
That's the quick version, unless you have any questions.
I know we didn't get any plans for the food truck park turned in, but, you know, it's where that house is and that land.
The house is for lease now, did you see that?
Well, that's what I'm asking. What is that lease sign for?
The latest we heard is that project has been put on hold and indefinite hold. So I don't have a reason why. I asked for a follow-up.
We're gonna put a restaurant
there.
That's what, you're gonna put a restaurant, yeah. You're not gonna put a food truck.
The westbound 149 turn lane, is that dead? Or are we just waiting for something miraculous to happen?
Exxon.
So if you go, the gas station issue dumpster,
That is, yeah, there's no action on that right now. So, you know, where that was left off, this was some time ago that the city was trying to work between the Shipley's site and TxDOT or in the Exxon to share some space to be able to obtain additional right-of-way to turn lane in, and that was never able to work out. There's an active development, we should be receiving plans for is a new Shipley's, right, or relocated Shipley's, I'm not exactly sure, over at C.D. Stewart in 105, so that might change.
Are those the only new proposed businesses, Discount Tire, Shipley's, and?
So right now, we have Discount Tire and Shipley's at the next council meeting. There's going to be an action item for a feasibility study for a brewery on Lone Star Parkway, Montgomery Brewing Co., across from the sand pit.
From the where?
From the sand pit. If you go by the community center and continue west, there's a small bridge right there
yeah.
on the north side. And then there was in the Discount Tire.
Yeah.
Most recent one.
Good. All encouraging, yeah.
what about the Porter Farms? I know you do a feasibility study, is it feasible?
They're going back and forth, so I mean, the basis of the study was water sewer capacity.
Right.
It's the same story that we've been saying for years, is it's here today, but based on projected, we need to continue to grow and expand, which is what we're updating the master plans at the moment for. Their biggest issues were obviously access and how utilities were getting on and off the site. So their original lane plan had a secondary road. It's called Thomas Street, but it's not a public street. It's between Pleasant, Morgan and Buffalo Springs on 1097, and they had a road and utilities coming that way. That has since, I think the developer realized it isn't a public street, so that's going back and forth. But other than that, he is, as of now, he's still moving forward with the development.
Aren't the lots really small?
They are.
So we have to get,
There's going to be variances for lot width, lot size, and compensating green space based on the lane plan. And likely accompanying that, they'll have a side lot, because then once they do that, they'll ask for variance in the side lot setback for all of those.
Still around 91 homes or so?
That's the latest we saw.
225, something like that, starting out.
Correct.
And what's the end of the MUD 179 on the planning feasibility east of the Town Creek crossing?
That's not the one.
Oh, wait, is this go? Yes, so that's the, where Town Creek Crossing is. So that is
That's the east of Town Creek crossing, right?
Oh, east of Town Creek Crossing is, so there's MUD 140, MUD 160. MUD 160, I believe, is Phillips Town Creek Crossing. And then east of it was the J. Allen Kent development. That has since switched hands, and there's a new, or at least the central portion of that is under new ownership. Same ownership as the Waterstone development.
Do we need to make a motion to Accept the
I
engineer's.
believe that we can move to the city administrator's report if y'all are amenable.
Engineer covered a number of things that cross both ways. Let's take a couple of highlights. In 2021, through October 31st, the city approved 34 new homes have been completed. In the month of October alone, 18 new home permits were issued for construction. So we're seeing the pace of construction pick up, which is only likely to continue now that we're close to seeing homes start in town, estates at Top Creek Crossing. Developer mentioned, engineer mentioned several developments. I named Redbird Meadow, Hills of Town Creek, there's Town Creek Crossing, Porter Farms. It's likely, all of those combined, 5 or 6 year timeline, add 800 plus homes to the city, not counting any other construction that might occur. 2020 census for the city is listed at 1,948. Adding 800 to 1,000 new homes in a 5 to 6 year period going to significantly increase that number.
You'll be putting more hours in, you know that, don't you? Yeah.
It never goes down.
I know.
It never goes down. All more of a good sign that we're moving forward with our downtown planning. We're going to see lots more people in the area, so
Good.
Good time for that. I'd just like to briefly ask if Amy Brown will add in an update on events in the city.
I'll come closer because sometimes I don't speak very loudly. And sometimes I do. All right, 10:30, we had the trick or treat. We had about 3,000 people in was with children. The police department passed out 500 bags in half an hour.
Wow.
Which was crazy.
Massive.
And the case is the first year the city has taken on doing that event. And I heard fabulous things, so that was good. On November 7th, we had the annual Old Man triathlon that comes through town from, Harbor, right? Yeah. They had a small group this year. It's usually 1,000 to 1,500. They only had 375 this year. Then November 13th just passed. We had the pet parade. That's the first time having that event. And we did have 22 participants, which isn't a bunch, but they had a ball. They just had a ball. They had children with their dogs. They had costumes on. And
A Chihuahua and a turkey costume. I've never seen that before, never.
We brought in some nonprofits to have tents up, which they appreciated, to adopt pets and spaying and neutering animals. December 4th is the park. We have 26 poles left on that, out of a total of 47. So we're still having people sign up fast and furious. That should get filled. We'll have Santa Claus out there. Chick-fil-A will be donating the cookies again. That's always 200 or 300 people show up for that event. Then December 11th is the big Christmas event. We have 5 activities going on that day. We have the parade, the historical society has the cookie walk, They have the marketplace, the candlelight tour homes, and this year we're doing the snow party. So we'll have 2 snow hills, one of them will be 10-foot high snow hill. And
That's going to be fun.
that's going to be fun. We'll have our DJ out there, a couple of food trucks, hot coffee and stuff. And Public Works has been helping us take down some fencing so we can get these snow hills in the correct locations. They don't melt in case we have a bright sunny day. They're cleaning out that property. There is some high crime equipment on there, which we're concerned about because that has not been serviced in years and years, and we'll have children. So we're working on figuring out how to block off that area so the children don't go there and play and possibly get hurt. We don't want that. We have snow, so they can play in the snow. So we're figuring out if we need to actually take out the equipment or if we can just fence it off.
Are y'all working with the MEDC on that as far as marketing and coordination of the candlelight tour and the other stuff that they do? Or are y'all completely separate?
That's put on by the historical society.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. That's what I meant.
But they have to turn in permits, we have to have food vendor permits, we have to have the coordination with all the people downtown, with the police department, fire department, Public Works has to block off streets. I have to have the vendor has to comply with city codes.
But you've been coordinating with the society
Yes.
to do it?
So my experience from a marketing perspective has been a little uneven in that, I'll get from the press releases or they'll tell me that they're going to be selling tickets this way, so I'll start publicizing that, and then I'll start getting nasty grams on Facebook that, well, nobody was here, wasn't open, or they weren't taking, this type of payment. So, pretty much just have been putting generic, this is going to be running from this time to this time, it's amazing, come see it.
That's what I was kind of getting at. Maybe it doesn't seem like it's always been coordinated in the past, very, like 100%. So.
Well, and there's not much I can do if they change their minds about their details. So, and it's really difficult to stop something once it's been out on Facebook, or Facebook decides to change the dates and times all by itself. So, and that's been another problem that I've been asking about, like the time of our event, because the city has the Christmas parade listed at 10 o'clock, which is when the Christmas parade is, but the Historical Society is doing their market at 9, but they want us to change our event to 9 on Facebook, which I'm not going to do, but they're very unhappy about that. But they're wanting to use our platform for their own marketing, which I do, but not if it's detrimental to our overall event. So again, I use my own graphics, I use, I feed their events and, nice graphics, accurate location, accurate times, but some of the details that I know are in flux, I can't put that on there because if it's wrong, then that causes more problems because we do put money behind it to push it to the surrounding communities because people love the cookie walk, they love the market, they like the candlelight tours. So, I think it's best if we do what we can to push the overall idea and the rough times, but I can't promise something that we can't deliver without hurting our brand.
But that's one benefit of having them fill out these street festival permits. They have to put their times down there, their locations, so they have to think through all that. Some groups just decide to have an event, and that's as far as they get. And so having that, and fill out these forms, we have actual dates and times signed by them that we and publish and tell people. Because the public just assumes all these are city events, and they're not. So what they call us, because some group was supposed to have an event, and they canceled it halfway through, and they showed up and bought tickets, but there's nothing, and we don't have it. So, we want to have them fill out the actual city required permits, so we have something from them.
So Amy, something that we've done, because we have people doing the same thing in our venue, is saying that they're hosting an event there when they're actually haven't paid for the venue at all, is we go into their Facebook site, all the announcements they've made, cut and paste, that this is not a sanctioned event, don't come here. And you'd be surprised how fast they'll pull it off their marketing when they find out that the venue is actually giving them the gospel. So just a little tip that you can do to eliminate because they're going to think it's you anyway if they show up, and they're going to think it's us if they show up, so you have to make it very clear it's not you. And if they want to keep the event up there, that's on them, but at least it's in the social media platform that you had nothing to do with this event, and it helps maybe with the communication a little bit.
Well, I think everyone wants the cookie walk and the tours and all that kind of stuff. I just wish it'd be nice if like the MEDC could do it all or something, but I know there's other things with this,
But
site.
we have a non-event coordinator that would have to work harder to make.
And I understand that.
Party planner, right?
Yeah, put that in the job description. So.
Well,
It's interesting.
But there's more to it than just that.
Well, I was
This is
gonna say,
society too.
party planner, in some ways it's great that you keep saying that because it gives the casual interpretation of what the job is and how easy it is. But really, the number of events that have been dropped and then Amy comes by and scooping them up is very telling about how difficult it is to make these events happen and then to keep them going year after
there's a lot of
year.
details involved in communicating with a lot of different entities to create an event. We
Because
definitely
they
know
just
how
to
that
get it
is.
right and then they keep it going. It's
Yeah.
an astonishingly difficult job to do well, even if they've been going year after year after year. Looking at some of the things like the trek, which the Historical Society used to run in the summer, which was essentially the tour of homes, but the summer version, went for, I want to say 25 years, and then it fell apart for whatever reason, but, it was a cherished institution that they couldn't maintain.
The problem, Becky, with the Historical Society is that there's a lot of people that are long in the tooth a little bit, and what we need to do is collaborate with them and make them feel comfortable about working with us to help sort of shore them up as they outgrow, or we outgrow, their capabilities, because they still have great ideas and they still have great influence, but what they don't have is the younger legs to pull it off. So I think they can feel like they're a little bit not as easy to work with, but I think their intentions are phenomenal, and they just want to be heard.
Right.
I guess
And I
more.
think it's great for somebody like Ryan who has a foot in both camps, who understands, the motivations of both groups.
Well, yeah.
Or maybe he doesn't feel that way.
You ever get to any of those meetings?
I've been to the society.
Yeah.
So, all right, does anyone have any other comments? or questions for
No,
Mr.
zero
Attorney?
comments.
I have a quick one though. Last week, city council, at city council, Kroger received some horrific report, and I went the next day to find the manager because the manager was called out in that issue. And it wasn't there, so I spoke to the assistant manager and I said, hey, representing the city, you just need to know that there was a terrible report on a person's experience there. And I said, managerial wise, we can say all we want about, well, they're just this or they're just that. To whatever extent, and this is where I credit Amy as well, to whatever extent we mess up, it sure helps. So just encouraging all of us, when you get wind of something, help these business owners out, because you can't fix what you don't know about.
Right.
And perception is reality to a degree, and we can't just ignore it. And so I complimented Amy for that before, and then when she did, you had that understanding a little better. So we just can't ignore these things, and when we have opportunity, whether we're MEDC or City Council or just representing the city in any way, help these owners out, because I'm floored by the number of people who go into these restaurants and they give these horrible reports. Have you read the newspaper? You understand we have inflation problems. We can't get anybody hired and stuff like that. But again, we know people rant and when they fuss, and I learned on my TML training about cave people. Citizens against virtually everything, right? So there is that, but we can't completely unaddress these things, so.
Well, I think it sounds like the events have been highly successful. That Charlie Diggs thing was just amazing, you know. I still think that there probably should be some advanced planning with respect to some of the businesses. If you want my opinion, if I had time with whomever is in charge of these events to at least discuss or mitigate some of these issues before they become problems, that would be helpful, especially when it comes to parking or just the mass amount of humanity that are sort of cluttering the streets and cluttering the sidewalks. I think just having some advance time and the parade time changing, that kind of threw me for, derailed us with respect to the star of the show is not available now because of that. So not knowing that with things, just more communication with respect to that, and maybe giving a heads up to the businesses in the area with, even if it's just an email that comes out, you know, that says, okay, this is what we're planning. We're 2 months in advance. Is there any concerns we can be looking at while we're preparing? That would be super helpful. And I think it would save Amy a lot of after the fact or during the event headaches, which she got practically accosted this last big event because there was a little bit of, you know, there wasn't a proper amount of communication to the businesses involved. So just, that's my only 2 cents for what it's worth, and I know she kills herself trying to make all this work, and she's fairly new at this, so she'll know next time, but from a business owner standpoint, we need more communication so that we can become better prepared to do it right.
I would like to point out that physical altercations are never appropriate, though, regardless of anyone's level of frustration.
Yeah, no, there's no rhyme or reason, but you know, some people in the community and businesses especially, well, they're just knuckleheads, you know. You can't coach that. It's just, they don't make good choices in the heat of the moment. But to protect everyone, interest, including the city's interest, just, I think hyper communication is better than none at all in this particular instance. But anyway, I know everybody's ready to go home.
So Jeff, there's a parade coming on December 11th at 10.
Yeah, I know that now.
Okay.
Thanks for just letting me know. I'll have my parking lot blocked off now. It's not gonna matter anyway.
Soon by my house.
Yeah, I'll tell them all to go to Ryan's place.
So yeah, Ryan, you'll get some reflectors for Christmas from the Huss family. All right then, with your permission, I'll move on. Executive session. MEDC Board of Directors reserves the right to discuss any of the items listed specifically under this heading or for any items listed above in executive closed session as permitted by law, including if they meet the qualifications in sections 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, 551.073, deliberation regarding gifts, 551.074, personnel matters, 551.076, deliberation regarding security devices, and 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations of Chapter 551 of the Government Code of the State of Texas. Item number 13. Adjourned into closed executive session as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551 of the Government Code, in accordance with the authority contained in the following. A, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, and 551.072, deliberation regarding real property. It is 9:03, and we will adjourn into executive session.
I'm gonna go to the restroom.
Yeah, finish the meeting.
Yeah. We'll break it out into
Yeah, we're getting into my bedtime here. Oh, goodness.
No, good night.
All right, thank you.
man, good to see you. Always.
I don't ever get to see you, that's awesome. That's a.
Good. Nice to meet you personally.
Yeah, send me a message.
Yes.
Whenever we're there.
Oh my gosh, we get to have an executive session too?
Yeah.
Wow! You guys really, yeah, I guess if we'd probably been less, maybe more quiet, we probably would.
That just encourages me to stay. Well, what about, you got a cot somewhere? I do, but actually, keep one in the last.
The Marine Corps?
Quarter special utilities.
The Marine Corps would give you a cot.
They just gave me a bag.
The free cot and a cot is definitely an exaggeration of the creature comforts.
And if you count building your own fire and warm up here at North, it gets hot, then yes. This is the background. This is the background for any Zoom meeting.
I have seen you in the Zoom meetings, that's a go back right there.
Once the mayor was in here in the meeting with this background, had the same background.
Oh, that's
Say.
Yes, he was in here with a Zoom meeting.
He was in here with a Zoom meeting with this. I had that as my background.
Everybody gets the same background. So you digitally took that?
I just digitally, I like that. So
I think it's great, yeah, fantastic. Is that original?
No, it's not, it is not the original text.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder where the original Texas flag is. Is it in the museum somewhere? I do not know. Yeah, it's interesting. We're the birthplace of the Texas flag, so it's gotta be, it's born here, it's gotta be somewhere in Texas, right?
I think he was through. I don't know if we actually had it made.
Ah.
So the original document was here at an event that you must not have an invitation to because I didn't see you at it.
I don't go to events very much. I just stand over the sidewalk. Not the sidewalk, the ditch.
It was a Texas flag celebration at Fernland a couple of years ago. They brought the original drawing.
Really?
Well, there you go. They brought it out of the Texas archives.
I can't keep up. There's not really any events going on all the time. It seems like there is. I'm tired. I was telling I was earlier, you know, especially in we had Saturday night. The two people sitting in the same room, ordered the same thing, two different tables. And they both gave their donations. One gave a lunch cover.
And we all remember how the components of this, right? And we approved the special period. I met with one of the realtors. And I went through the items. Part of the historical context of how they doesn't need a they need to feel that. I really allow us to get for a long-term study in downtown, make part of the agreement, or back to I think she's looking for an opportunity to have a long-term issue. That's what I
My TV again is cold.
Keep in mind, these mics are on.
Huh?
These microphones are still on.
Yeah.
Sounds so wrong, can you move this way?
Well, that's it.
It is 9:21 and I'm calling us back into session. Item number 14, consideration of possible action on real property matters discussed in executive session. Anyone?
You make a move?
Oh, I'll make a motion that the MEDC president enter into discussions on real property.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to allow the MEDC president and city administrator to enter into real property discussions. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of allowing the city administrator and MEDC president to enter into real property discussions, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will allow the MEDC president and city administrator to enter into real property discussions. Board inquiry. I would like to discuss potentially looking at the EDC sponsoring a TERS in the area.
A what?
TERS, it's like a tax rebate type thing to encourage development. My ideal is along 149 and 105. My preference would be to have 2 to 3 story historic look buildings to get your maximum rebate. Bottom floor has to be sales tax generating. Your top 2 floors could be residential or office. Obviously, it has to be within code depending on where you are, or zoning rather. But there are TERS that are specifically set up to reimburse developers for buildings. Some TERS are set up for infrastructure. And the video we watched, it was the increase in your tax value. So your tax rate is set here, or your tax base is set here, and any increase in the tax base is, this triangle part is what's part of your TERS and available for reimbursement. If your developers aren't eligible for the maximum reimbursement, according to your matrix of, historical look, sales tax generating, et cetera, then that money would stay in the TERS and be available for other types of things like our downtown enhancement, that kind of thing. So the big sell on this is, one, we have to get more than one taxing entity to get involved. It wouldn't really just work if the city is doing it, because the city is a really small taxing entity at 0.4 per 1,100. 2, we have to get the city to agree, because it's not sales tax, it's only property tax. So, and 4, the biggest taxing entity in the area is, look at your tax bill, ISD.
ISD by far.
So we'd have to convince them that doing something like this wouldn't hurt them in the medium run, even though they'd be giving away their delta. Because we'd be encouraging growth to be brought forward, but since it's along our commercial corridors, it wouldn't be bringing kids to their school that we wouldn't be giving them revenue for. It would be providing enhancements to the area that would be bringing higher value properties and growth to the area.
We'll have some discussions with the city attorney on how to bring that up and bring that back next.
I was gonna say, but tours cost money, the lawyer's fees for setting it up and that kind of thing, and that might be something that we're able to sponsor.
And it's gonna, if followed through, it will have to have some board.
Right.
That will be appointed by the participating entities.
Right. So then the other thing is that it would give the city control over what type of development we have along the
That's
corridor.
my main thing, yes.
Which we have lost because we don't have the corridor easement lever anymore because the state legislature.
That's why I want to encourage, staff to coordinate building uses and things that we've talked about going in the future, and maybe we can scratch their back and they can scratch our back.
And this is one of the tools that I've been looking at with that potential.
Right.
Makes sense.
And because it does everything you said there. One of the ways it does that is by reserving the growth of tax money within that area for that area when you implement it.
Right, and the other thing to do is to have in the matrix for reimbursement if they participate in the entrepreneurship program that we've been talking about as an incentive. This would give them money to do it, paid for by their own taxes.
And it would give us the ability to fund it.
Right.
Sounds good.
So anyway, but it would cost us money too because you have to hire lawyers.
Sure.
So that's what I'd like to know more about and talk more about. And until
The world needs more lawyers. Ryan said that.
Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to talk about for board inquiry or ideas?
No?
We have a couple follow-up items from this meeting, but, okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll entertain the motion.
It has been motioned and seconded that we adjourn. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. I hear no dissenting items. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. We are adjourned at 9:27.
A lot of minutes on that.
Yeah. It's going to take 2 months just to finish.
You know